What's that?
The tiebreaker.
Yeah.
He's right on time.
There is a-
Yeah, technology.
Oh, no, he just automatically.
No, I texted him.
I wouldn't mind.
I cheated. He read my mind.
I like it. That's good. That's really good. I call this meeting to order for the Board of Trustees of the Town of Buena Vista. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Lacy,
Here.
trustee Trey,
Here,
trustee LaCretzi,
Here.
trustee Rowe,
Here.
trustee Swisher,
Here.
trustee Wilkie.
Thank you all. Will you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. I please remind you to silence or turn off your cell phones if you have them. First on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we have, we would like to add a second exec session for water rights negotiation.
Lack of a better way to put it, I say, oh goody. One more.
That's all.
To go out with a bang, Volpe.
That's all we have from staff.
Okay, from staff. Anybody else have any additions or deletions? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll go Swisher. You go. Made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item is consent agenda. And if you will, everybody should have got a email with an update on the packet. There was a, let's say, just a deletion on the consent agenda on item C. Doesn't change the concept or the consent agenda, just it was just elected to put in there. Any other questions?
A short question.
Yes.
So what they're doing still meets state requirements and all that?
Yep, sure.
That's what I figured.
Yep. All of that follows statute and,
a potentially long question.
but, okay, so next.
On page 13, there's a statement about remote participation by a trustee. And it's my contention that the middle line there where it says if trustees attend a meeting remotely, I think it should be for instead of including quasi judicial issues. They can listen to the topic but not participate in the discussion or vote. Because I think they can vote as long as it's not quasi judicial, according to what we passed, I think back in June.
Yes, so I think the policy reads that a trustee can attend the meeting remotely. They can vote, they can discuss, participate, and vote on all matters on the agenda except for quasi judicial topics. When those items begin, the trustee needs to, they can stay on the meeting remotely, but they cannot participate and they cannot vote. Then once that item is over and then the board's on to the next item, they can participate again. Does that make sense? So they don't have to step off the meeting or recuse themselves or anything.
I think just that one word needs to be changed.
So it's just, and basically that's what you're questioning is just
Yeah.
what the statement is saying,
Yeah, because
basically.
it sounds like the statement is saying that even in any kind of decision-making, including quasi judicials, they can listen to the topic but not participate in the discussion or vote. But it should be for the quasi judicial ones.
If that helps make it clear, I think.
It helps me.
Yeah, then that the board can certainly change that.
And unless Jeff has a point that he wants to make about that.
Yeah,
any
no, I agree with Libby, I think that it actually needs to be changed to be more clear.
Thank you very much, Libby. Do you have something else?
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I would entertain a motion.
Make that motion that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Lucrezi, second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I remind anyone that's attending via Zoom that presses *9 and you will be recognized to speak, or you may raise your hand in the chat box. Okay. And we have currently 2 people signed up here. We'll go ahead and start in-house. First is Ray Barnett. And if you would please state your name and address. Thank you, Ray.
Ray Barnett, 144 Connie Drive. And my reason for being here tonight is 6 years of dog barking issues that I've tried to resolve in many ways, coming down to finally getting the police involved. And a court date for the gentleman, this is a couple of years ago, but the court date ended up the fact that he was reinforced that the dog barking was being provoked. And to the recourse that I had no more avenue to correct the problem. So with that being said, in 2020, I let it be and put it to rest. Well, the gentleman that lived there at the time with the hound dog, he is currently passed, he's no longer there. The new tenant, same dog is there, and there's another hound dog there. And the same story, but even more so now. The other night I woke up at 2:30 a.m. with 15 minutes of barking, and next night at 3:20 a.m. And I did make a call to Chaffey County at that time when there's no officer to respond, which I understand due to personnel limits. But it comes down to the fact, speaking with Grant and Officer McDonald, is the ordinance reads provocation or to be provoked. And they're coming back that the dog is being provoked by anything, the vehicles down the road, somebody walking, the wind, whatever. Provocation, nobody's provoking the dogs. Nobody's going on the property. Nobody's doing anything to provoke these dogs. I witnessed it on videos. I've had many conversations with many people. And Grant's been very helpful and I appreciate him and I look forward to working with him some more. But as a resident here, I feel I have no voice. I've lived here for 6 years. It's been an ongoing battle. I've talked to the gentleman. I've been pleasant and neighborly, but it ruins the neighborly relationships. And the dogs are taking too much precedence. And I would hope you could look at the ordinance and maybe work on it better to where your officers and Grant have. So I heard about both of them last week that they can do nothing because the dogs are being provoked. They are not being provoked. That's what the younger one's provoking the older dog now, that's for sure. But I would just like to resolve this and maybe give them the tools to work with to where this can come to anybody with the dog barking issue should not be having to deal with this. This has been 6 years of my life. And I would like to see some resolve to it and some positive outcome. I'm a very patient person, but I'm getting tired. Being woke up in the middle of the night kind of ruins the next day. And with that being said, I would like to think that maybe it could be looked over, maybe reinforced or rewritten to where that provocation is, because that even right from your town lawyer reinforced it that the dogs are being provoked, so it's okay. And I disagree totally with that. So I don't know what else to say on it, but I would appreciate some resolve to this, and I would like to work with Grant a little bit more on it. I haven't heard back from him, but I feel that it could be handled a lot better. And as a person calling in, you know, a little more respect for the fact of what they're dealing with. So,
okay.
With that being said, I got a lot of notes here, but I think that pretty much covers it, and hopefully give you folks something to think about.
All right. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Next is Norma Caddy.
Katie.
Hi, my name is Norma Katie. I'm at 502 South San Juan, apartment 102, and I think you've got some information from me before this meeting. But I am a former Peace Corps volunteer that was in Eastern Ukraine in 2007 to 2009. And so I'm in the process of starting up something. I'm not sure how it's going to be, in what form, but it's going to be Central Colorado Stands with Ukraine. And I'm not asking for your permission, but I just wanted to say that's what I'm speaking about. And I'm interested in two things. And I have a list of supporters on item number 1, and I'm doing some presentations regarding item number 2. The first item is installment of a friendship bench here in Buena Vista. And you may have seen in the paper a picture of me standing beside a bench in Kremenaya, Ukraine. And it says Friendship Buena Vista and Kremenaya. And it's spelled Kremena, but it's pronounced Kremenaya. And the thing about it is that they went ahead and put this bench in, said that it was donated by Buena Vista here. But they said it was donated by me, but that he was just preempting everything. And so it's still there. I've talked to my friends that are set this bench up, and they are all for doing this bench. The next thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that when I was in the Peace Corps, we were guided a lot by Sister Cities International. And so I'm proposing here that we consider becoming a member of Sister Cities International. There's 22 sister cities that have a relationship with Ukraine, some community in Ukraine. There's a lot of information on the Sister City International website. I'm just on the mailing list. You can't be a member unless you're a community. So I'm just an interloper on that website. And so I'd love to just proceed with trying to see if we could become a sister city with Kremenaya. You can be a sister city with a variety of places. You don't have to have just one. But that's what the dream of my Peace Corps service was. The people really wanted to be involved. And the reason why they wanted to be involved with sister cities is because it trains people on civil society, on nonprofit establishments, on sorts of things that Russia doesn't have experience with, but Ukraine was gaining experience with. And now that this attack on Kremenaya or on Ukraine has happened, they're really eager to try to do this, to have a relationship with somebody else. And the other reason, and then the third thing related to that is I want to do presentations throughout the community about life in Kremenaya, Ukraine, because it was a rural town and it's just really, and the reason they selected me as their Peace Corps volunteer in Kremenaya was because the guy that I worked with as a cohort there knew about the rafting business in Buena Vista. And he wanted me to start a rafting business. Problem is that the water was about that deep. It didn't flow very fast and you'd have to paddle downstream. So, but that was why he chose me, one of the reasons, to be the Peace Corps volunteer in Kremenaya. And so I just wanted, and we did the last thing I want to say is that we worked with the kids in the community, in the school districts, and we did field work on ecological education in a Stalin forest which is a forest planted in rows that has no diversity. And so we worked on, the kids came up with ideas on how to be diverse logically. And I think that'd be a great way to share with a Sister Cities program. So I just wanted to introduce the possibility of doing this, and then maybe we can have an agenda item sometime, you know, a next meeting or something. I could do a proposal more formally.
Okay, and thank you for your, coming in tonight, and that gives us a few things to talk about, trustee staff. Okay. Along with, he left, dog barking. We'll communicate those things. Thank you, Norma.
Okay.
Is there anybody signed up, Philip? Hands raised?
I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom.
One on the audience.
Oh, go ahead, step forward. Please state your name and address, please.
I'll sign up. My name is Tom Plant, 619 James Place. And I'm here just to ask, as you're looking at the franchise agreement with Sangre de Cristo, two things. One would be to ask for membership engagement in major decisions that the utility is making, so that there's a process for the members of Sangre de Cristo to engage with the board and the staff on any big decisions that they're making. And the second would be that I know that the term of the franchise agreement is generally about 20 or 25 years, and would request that you have a 5-year extension for this franchise agreement so that you can engage the community in what Buena Vista's energy objectives might be, and then be able to work that into a partnership agreement with SDCA when the re-upping of the franchise agreement happens. And I sent around a document last week that I think you received about some of these franchise agreements and how cities can create operating agreements with utilities. So hopefully that's helpful in that process.
Okay, thank you very much. Or for trustee staff. Nothing else? I think we're good. We close this portion of the meeting, public comment. First item is a public hearing, the transfer of hotel and restaurant liquor license. The board will consider approving a hotel liquor license transfer from EJS Restaurants Incorporated, DBA Quincy's, to SS Quincy's, DBA Quincy's. From staff first.
Mayor and trustees, follow up to the information in the packet. Sheriff Grant, the owner of SS Quincy's Incorporated, doing business as Quincy, submitted an application on February 28th for the transfer of ownership of the hotel restaurant liquor license issued to EJS Restaurants doing business as Quincy's. Per CRS 443303(2), a local licensing authority may issue a temporary permit to a transferee of any retail class of alcohol beverage license. A temporary permit authorizes the transferee to continue selling alcohol beverages as permitted under the license during the period as the application to transfer the ownership of the license is pending. SAC completed the town's temporary liquor license application and that was issued on February 25th and will expire on June 26th. The application for transfer of ownership is complete. Required fees have been paid, and the application was set for public hearing before the Board of Trustees on March 29th. Notice of the public hearing was published in the Chaffey County Times on March 17th and posted on the property on March 14th. The results of the review of the application packet are as followed. Background check and fingerprints were submitted for Sarah, and satisfactory results were received from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Police Chief Morgan has approved the transfer. Staff finds the state application complete and meets the requirements and recommends the approval of transfer of ownership the hotel restaurant liquor license from EJS Restaurants doing business as Quincy's to SS Quincy's Incorporated doing business as Quincy's. And Sarah is here this evening if you have any questions.
Okay, could you just give us a little bit of background, Paula, just the difference between just a transfer as compared to a new
The
request?
transfer of the liquor license, so at Quincy's, there was already a current license issued. So in this case, Eva has signed all the necessary paperwork authorizing that her license that she was issued could be transferred over to Sarah. So she had to sign that form, as well as all the vendors that supply liquor that previously supplied it to Eva would now, those accounts are up to date and would roll it over to Sarah. The other advantage to doing a transfer is you don't have that lull in time. So at that time when Sarah took over the business, there could have been anywhere up to a 90-day lull in time to where Sarah could not serve alcohol because she did not have that license. So a transfer is definitely more beneficial to the new owner if the previous owner agrees to that.
Okay, and the other thing I noticed here, you're just saying upon our approval, the packet will be sent to the state. So essentially all we do at this point in time, it's already been approved because of the previous person. And so all we're doing now, once this packet, if we approve it as a board, then the packet is sent to the state saying now that license is transferred to another owner. Basically, is that what you're saying?
And the board can say, no, we don't want to do this.
Exactly.
Transfer, which now rolls it over to where Sarah would have to apply.
Go through the whole process.
License, that whole new process of going through a new license issued to her. Whereas Eva has said, okay, we can transfer my license to Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? Any clarifying questions? None? If you would like to make a statement of any kind, we'd sure like to hear from you.
My name is Sarah Saw and I'm from Leadville. Normally I have the Quincy's down there and I just look forward to doing business in Buena Vista. And I hope you guys all approve my transfer of my liquor license, obviously. So thank you very much.
All righty, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you all very much. I close that portion of the public comment. Do we have any public comment in this public hearing? I don't see anybody stepping forward, standing up. Philip, do you have anything over there?
Nothing.
Nothing. We close this portion of the public hearing for public comment. Any other clarifying questions? Communication, comments? Motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the transfer.
Second, Lucrezi. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Fang,
Yes.
trustee Lucrezi,
Yes.
trustee Rowe,
Yes.
trustee Swisher,
Yes.
and trustee Wilkie.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you guys.
Welcome.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
You can hang around, by the way. I don't mind.
I'll see you around maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Town Community Grant Program Funding Proposal. Chaffey County Community Foundation Executive Director Betsy Dittenberg. Thank you. Will present a summary of the applications. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Betsy Dittenberg. For those of you who haven't met yet, I just want to thank the Board of Trustees for entrusting the grant process to the Community Foundation again this year. It really was an honor to be able to go through the review and recommendation process. I also really want to thank the 8 volunteers. They had an exceptional level of professionalism and dedication, and they really helped us create an equitable process that was focused on creating the most impact in the community. So they all put in approximately 25 hours of their time or more. Would you say that's? And so it really was a high level of dedication on their part to make it possible. So for the 2022 grant process, we received 37 applications total. And I know I've already provided this information to you, so I don't want to read the whole thing, but I just want to hit on some of the highlights. There were 5 applicants that were not funded. 35 applicants were allocated funding from the BV Community Grants Fund for a total of $49,706. The average grant size for the entire process was just over 2,000, with the town of BV's average just over 1,500. And one of the big things that we did differently this year was that we moved from project-based funding that really places an extra burden on the nonprofit partners as far as, finding their most sellable project, and then also reporting on that, versus operating funding, where there's a great need in the nonprofit sector for that. And it's a shifting more to a trust-based funding mechanism where we're trusting that the entire program is having the impact that we want to see. And we're letting them decide where the funding is needed most within their organization. And we received already really good feedback from our nonprofit partners that they really appreciated filling that gap of operating funding, since it is hard to get. The other thing that we did slightly differently this year was how we allocated the BV versus Salida percentage. I know that that's always really important. We want to know that the local dollars are staying in the local community. We asked a different question this year on how people serve, how the organizations serve the different populations. And so they were able to indicate the percent of the population that they serve that are residents of BV, residents of Salida, and residents of another entity. And so we were able to use that data to go in and allocate the funding appropriately. So if you look at, for instance, KHEN, which we know is a very Salida focused organization, they actually indicated that 10% of their population that they serve are BV residents, and they were able to back that up through the site visit questions. And so you look at only about $300 was allocated out of the BV fund, whereas about $3,000 was allocated from the Salida fund. That pretty much wraps it up, but I'm happy to take any questions that any folks have on the process, or how we made the recommendations or anything else.
Trustees?
Say thanks for putting all the time and energy into that. I'm sure it's quite hard to decide who gets what. I do some grants for my personal business, and we always get a ton of people that everybody has a great thing, and you're like, I want to give something to everybody. So I know it's a tough process. So thank you for doing it and putting that out there, and for those people to have those grant opportunities. So
thank you. And I really do want to just say it's the volunteers that do the grant review committee. Those discussions are intense. And so it's a really mental and time burden that they take on to be a part of it. And so we're always looking for more volunteers to participate in future processes as well.
That's it. It's really inspirational. I know Mark did it before I did. And, you were saying how wonderful it was to see what these organizations are doing. And so it's a neat way to get to know what's happening in the community.
And I'll reiterate, it saves the board a lot of time. It was, and we didn't give it the time it deserved, only because of that. It was budget season and we're just going, okay, just make it happen. Did you have something?
I just, from a staff perspective, I want to express my appreciation for this continued partnership. I think this is our third year. Third year? Yeah. But yeah, not only does it save time, but it creates a really robust process that I think supports the nonprofit groups. So we love it. It's great. It puts it at a different level than what the board was able to give it at that point. Because like I say, we had other things on the plate and it was just so hard to bring that to the front and make it a priority. And so this is great. This is really great. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I ask for a motion to approve the recommendation?
Yes, we could do that.
That we
Can I have a motion?
finish that out.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
second. Oh,
I heard Faye, second Faye. Now, I was hoping somebody would question what the motion was for, but that's all right. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Fay,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi.
yes.
Trustee Rowe,
Yes.
trustee Swisher,
Yes.
trustee Wilkie.
Yes. Thank you all very much. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a comment from the Boys and Girls Club facility plan update. You gonna lead in on this, or do we just want to put Dustin on the spot?
On the spot.
Let's put
I
them.
thought,
Congratulate Betsy too and the Chaffey County Community Foundation. I am a huge fan of that grants program that the city does, and then how we have volunteers that in the community get involved and work that. It's really great. I got to be a part of that at one time, and it was a good learning experience, and it was good. It's a great process. So thanks for the work you did, Foundation. So I'm here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club. My name's Dustin Nichols. I am their facilities committee chair. Also a volunteer board member for them as well. I want to thank town. I want to thank you, Mayor, trustees, staff, for giving this opportunity tonight to come and give you an update on the progress that the Boys and Girls Club is making in regard to the facilities that we shared with Town Rec. And I was very excited about this. Excited about this for quite some time. And unfortunately, the very meaningful and impactful disclosure, if you will, or update that I was going to provide to you, I can't provide right now. We kind of set out at the very beginning to have a very deliberate process in how we went about this. And there were a few delays in late February that created a situation where we're going to have to delay a capital campaign function for another month. And so that meeting is now going to happen April 19th. It's very important to us that, we adhere to that plan that we had to work with a certain donor group and a certain group of leaders that we're going to be relying on very heavily. And so we want to be respectful of our process, and I apologize that I'm unable to give you that update tonight. And I hope that in April at your meeting that there will be time that can be allowed, if the agenda can permit, that I can come back and give you this disclosure and provide that wonderful, very public input and answer your questions and give you the information and give you that update that I know you're hungry for. And I can assure you there's been some tremendous progress that's been made, and I'm very excited to share it with you. And I want to thank town while I have this chance, because it's been very good to continue to work with you folks as we've been moving through this. So, excuse me from the.
No worries. Thank you very, thank you very much, Dustin. And no apology is needed. We all understand how things flow, best way to put it, or don't flow, best way to put it. But we appreciate you keeping us posted. That's what counts. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the Carbonate Street discussion. Trustees will hear presentations from staff and Fading West Development regarding the overall concept for development at Carbonate Street, and trustees will consider whether to authorize launch of public input and design campaign as presented. Staff going to lead off, or is Fading West going to?
I'll give a quick intro and then hand it over to Fading West. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, trustees. Good to be with you. Really excited to bring this development back before you. You all are pretty familiar with this concept at this point, and we have been plugging away. I think we last formally had an agenda item on this in early January. So I've had the pleasure of working with Scott and his team at Fading West almost on a weekly basis since early January. And the focus of our discussions have primarily been the term sheets that we will discuss later in executive session. But we've also been really focused on this idea of how do we set ourselves up well for designing and launching and conducting, implementing a community campaign that would give us all the information we feel like we need to present to you to move this project from a concept to an actual plan and then into implementation. So tonight, we're at that milestone, in my opinion, where we are coming before you and wanting to launch in a very formal and public way that community input campaign. So we don't have a formal, any sort of formal agreement or set plan other than our community engagement plan to present to you. And we wanted Fading West to come and make a presentation on who they are, their approach to this particular project, and how we plan to proceed over the next couple of months. So I'm obviously available for questions, but I want to turn it over to Scott, and he'll be leading most of the discussion. So.
Great. Well, thank you for this opportunity to talk with you tonight. I am Scott Simmons, Director of Development at Fading West, and we're really excited to be part of this project, and we look forward to to moving forward with this project in the next phase, which will be that community engagement process. Just to start off, we always like to start with this image. This is just a candid image that was taken one day in the farm, the first development that Fading West did. And it really summarizes what we're trying to create with our developments. We're trying to create places that foster community relationships where kids feel safe to go play out in their front yards. And this was just taken. You can see a lot of activity going on at the farm. So flip to the next one. So we'll start with just a brief overview of kind of Fading West. I know some of you are probably pretty familiar with us, but some others are not. So I'll just give you a brief overview of who Fading West Development is, how we started, and then we'll dive into the community engagement process specifically and how that's going to kind of be structured. And then we'll look at the plan as it stands now, and we can dissect the different phases of that plan. So when we approach a project and a development, we kind of have this dream of creating a place that is connected to its community, it's attainable. And when we look at Carbonate, we were really excited about this project because the objectives that the board set out were really aligned with where we come from a company standpoint. All of our communities have these kind of 5 characteristics. Community is always at the center of everything we do. So, and we think that community is fostered by having these shared common spaces. So if you look at the farm, we have the fire pits, the pavilions, we have some open spaces, and that's really where life happens. That's where relationships are built. Another aspect of all of our neighborhoods is long-term attainability. And we've learned some lessons at the farm. I mean, we didn't do it right the first time. We built houses, we suppressed the prices, people bought them, and now they're sold for $100,000 more a year or two later. So we've learned some lessons the hard way on really what is long-term attainability, how do we do it? So our phase 2, we'll have market rate units and we'll have deed restricted units. And we hit 2 different price points. The deed restricted units will have an appreciation cap, which will keep that long-term sustainable, affordable price. And that kind of gets to the next part of this, diversity. So when you think of diversity in a community, we think of people, obviously. We want our communities to be a cross-section of the towns that they're serving. So it needs to be a cross-section of the local community. It's mixed income, mixed rental versus for sale. There's a diversity of unit types. So we have townhomes and detached single family, we have apartments. So when we looked at the Carbonate project, we saw a lot of these characteristics already embedded in the way that you've set up the objectives of the project. Go to the next slide. So, when we set out to build the farm, from the beginning, we kind of understood that modular construction could be a solution to building more affordable units because offsite construction offers a little bit more efficiency. You have more control over the labor market, which is a hard thing these days. You don't have to be dependent on weather. So we bought houses from Nebraska from 2 different manufacturers. And we learned, again, some lessons from the hard way. Some of those houses took a lot of work to get them to the level of quality that we wanted. Once they came to the site, we had to set those boxes, put the finishing touches on them, and that took a lot of work. So we decided that we could do this better and we could actually bring that to Buena Vista. So we built a factory. It opened in November of last year. We employ 100+ people in the community, which is really exciting to not only be able to provide houses, but to provide jobs for our locals. And it's humming along. We've set 4 homes in the farm that have come out of the factory. So that's really exciting for us. We have projects down in Poncha Springs and a development called Poncha Meadows that we're taking 18-foot wide homes down the interstate. So you might see big white boxes going down the road from the factory soon. So we're really excited about the benefits that modular manufacturing can offer to attainable communities. We're able to hit cheaper price points per square foot. We're able to build faster and still create an architecturally interesting quality product. And that's key to all of our developments. And I mean, our goal is that from this factory in BV, we'll be producing 500 homes a year. We're not there yet. It takes a while to ramp up and to learn lessons about how to build houses better. And we have three kind of mantras that we talked about at our tour: safety, quality, velocity. Velocity's last. We really want to have safety first. Quality is definitely second. And then we'll get to the velocity when we get there. So I want to flip to the next. So we've built a great team, and I think our people are our strength. And this is the team that'll be working on the Carbonate project. So myself and John O'Neill, we're on the development side. So you guys have already taken care of land acquisition. That was easy. We don't have to do that. So now we're kind of in that design entitlement phase, community engagement piece. So you'll probably see my face and John's face. We have a funding arm of our company, Capital Partners Group. So they're in charge of raising money for all of our projects. The building systems, that's the factory. So we have that. And then construction crew is led by Matt Steed and a team of people. And then we have a whole properties division that is in charge of sales, property management, community management, and Ryan Conley's managing that. And so we kind of span the whole development spectrum from land acquisition to sales and leasing. And so we call it kind of a vertically integrated structure. So I think that's one of the advantages of Fading West is we can offer all those services. And we have a lot of great people that are working hard to do all of this. So just a lot of you are probably familiar with this, so I won't go through all of the numbers, but the farm has been pretty successful, I think. I mean, we've done some things that we would change and we've learned some lessons, but we sold out of phase one and we're selling phase two. We sold 91 homes in phase one, bought the land in 2016, or 2 years later, we were selling our houses. Phase two consists of 51 units, 40 are townhomes and 11 single family. And half those townhomes will be deed restricted. So when you see some of the houses that are coming out now on Zillow, you're probably thinking, wow, that's pretty high price. That's true. It's market rate. But we are selling deed restricted units that will be a suppressed price, and they will be for locals, and they'll be have that appreciation cap. And we have a ton of people interested in phase two. So just keep looking for more homes being built in phase two. And the goal of the farm was to really to build homes for locals, for workforce, for these essential services. I think we've done a decently good job. I mean, I don't know if that statistic's exactly close, but when we last counted, it was around 80% primary residence. We don't have as many dark windows as other places. We try to have locals live in our neighborhoods. It's a better neighborhood to live in when you have people actually being there. And so we have a lot of different people that live in our communities in the farm. So now switching gears to Carbonate. The next phase of this project, we've gone through the site plan. We've worked with Joseph on these term sheets, but we're really excited to start the community engagement plan and really listening to the public, listening to the board, hearing what the town wants and needs. I think it's an important part of this partnership. So the focus areas of this community engagement plan will be threefold at this point, and we're open to suggestions, but really program refinement. We do have a program that was outlined by the Board of Trustees, and we are meeting that program in the current site plan. But we're interested to hear, do we need townhomes? Do we need more apartments? There's a lot of different program refinement that can happen in this phase. So we're interested to kind of hear the community's input on that. The site plan, we do have a proposed site plan we'll talk about in a minute, but we're open to suggestions on, is it 2 buildings? Is it 1 building? How do we lay out the alleys? How does this connect to the broader community? And then architecturally, we'd love to hear some input. We do have a standard product line that is part of the manufacturing process, but we also don't want all of our communities to look exactly the same. We want architecturally interesting projects that are contextually sensitive. So that's a tricky balance. Like, how do you make a project that's manufactured in a facility and make it architecturally interesting? But we would love to hear the community input on how that could happen. The strategies for this community engagement are we take 3 different approaches. We want it to be interactive. We want people to feel comfortable interacting, whether that's online, through surveys, or in person. We want it to be collaborative. This isn't us, it's we work together on this. We've had a great partnership so far with Joseph and the town, and we look forward to working collaboratively on, what this could be. And finally, we want it to be informative. We want to make decisions based on information. So we wanted to have people come by the farm, look at houses, understand our process, and then we can kind of work together on strategies moving forward with the project. So from April to August, that will be our community engagement window. And we'll look at trying to get feedback from all the different stakeholders around. I mean, this property is pretty interesting because it's surrounded by, it has South Main on one side. It has Collegiate Commons, which is two very different pieces. And then we have just the old town kind of neighborhood, the grid coming in. So it's sandwiched between a lot of different things. So we understand that context is tricky. And I think it's a really great opportunity to kind of stitch this triangle together. So we want feedback from all of those partners. And so that first step will be kind of engaging in the community feedback through surveys, visual preference surveys, charrettes, those type of things. And then the step 2 would be to take that feedback, create a sketch plan, present it back to the board, get more feedback, do another round of community engagement with the second sketch plan, and then refine more of a final plan that we would present, and then a report. And in August, we would end with hopefully a Board of Trustees approval and a final sketch plan. So that's kind of the overview of the community engagement piece. And then we can go to the next and dive into the plan. So this is the plan that was submitted with RFP. Phase 1, which is kind of the north side with the white buildings, that's a mixed use buildings. There's 2 buildings, a total of 50 apartment units and around 8,100 square feet of commercial space. And that commercial space would be allocated for childcare facilities or entrepreneurial space. That's somewhat to be determined how that will be allocated. But right now we have about 8,100 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor with 2 stories of residential above it. And then parking accessed off the alley and then off of a connection of Utah Street coming on the north side of the apartment units. And then the phase 2 would be the single family and detached units. There's 15 units and 3 ADUs. So a total of 18 residential units proposed for the triangle piece, which would be phase 2. And you can see the mixes of homes. They vary from 2 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. Actually 1 bedrooms, the ADUs are 1 bedroom. So we really are trying to span a lot of different types of homes with the single family portion. The apartments right now are set at studios and 1 bedrooms, just for space. It's 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms take up more room. But that's part of the feedback we would like to hear is what's the right unit mix? What does it need? You can go to the next slide. From an architectural style, probably most of you are familiar with the style of the farm. It's kind of a modern farmhouse style, but we do have other styles. This is a project we're working on. The bottom right image is a project in Telluride, and just more of a shed style roof with standard lap siding. The other 3 images are a project down in Poncha Meadows and Poncha Springs, and it's a mountain modern aesthetic with different colors, different finishes. The rails are not white. Similar. The houses are the same as far as the floor plans, but the aesthetic of the home is very different when you look at that streetscape compared to the farm. And then if you flip the slide, these are more of our traditional modern farmhouse. These are the homes that are now currently for sale in phase 2 and already set and almost ready to go. From an interior finishes, part of manufacturing is we're not offering 100 different countertops you can pick from. We're offering, well, 1. It's a nice one. I mean, it's quartz countertop. It's a nice countertop, but that's part of kind of radically reducing the part numbers so that we can have a more efficient, lower cost project. So we do have color options for cabinets, the siding, the exterior options are there's more ways to change the exterior than the interior, I would say. The luxury vinyl plank flooring, we do have 2 options, and the shower boards. So this just gives you an idea of some of the standard finishes that we currently are using in our homes. All right, so now onto the actual project itself. So this looks really fluorescent on the screen, but yeah, this is an overall massing model. This is not intended, obviously, to give any idea of style or any of that. It's just massing, it's just boxes, but it gives you an idea of what this could look like in 3D. So on the north side, you see the gold and red boxes. Those are the apartments. The gold is the 2 stories of apartments, and then the ground floor is that red. And you'll notice that the apartments are longer than the commercial space. So there's actually tuck under parking underneath the apartments, because parking is an issue with this project. We have to provide a lot of parking for 50 units. And so we're trying to use as much of that space efficiently as we can. So we're tucking that parking space under the units. And then on the right side, you can see phase 2 and how those homes could be laid out, and the size and scale of those homes in the development. And then you see the streetscape and Carbonate as part of the public improvements we would do for this project. We would improve Carbonate Street connecting all the way to South Main. So it's focusing on phase 1, it kind of takes out phase 2. You can see this is what would be constructed as phase 1. Flip the next one. And when we kind of dissect it a little bit, the summary is that 50 apartments. Right now, we're with what we know as far as infrastructure costs, public improvement costs, and manufacturing costs, we're at around 100% AMI average. We have 8,150 square feet of commercial space that will be contributing to this project at no cost to the project. And that would include, at this point, we're showing 3,000 square feet of childcare center. And that's, you can see that highlighted in the pink. And then the green space in front would be childcare outdoor space. So they have 3,000 square feet of childcare center, and then about 3,000 or 4,000 square feet of outdoor space in front of it. From a public improvements perspective, we would extend Carbonate Street all the way just to where Utah would extend and connect in. And we would improve the alleys and sidewalks and street trees per town standards. You can kind of see where our parking is laid out right now. We're proposing 57 dedicated spaces. That's 1 per unit and 7 spaces for the commercial space. And then potentially overflow parking. A thought would be to share parking with collegiate commons. So phase 2, this is the single family detached and attached side. This kind of shows you exactly where that is. If you flip to the next slide. The diagram on the top kind of shows a potential pricing strategy. As you get to South Main, you're abutting $700 square foot homes. And so we could see that potentially being more of a higher end as far as the AMI percentage goes. That would be a higher end unit. And then further down Carbonate towards the apartments, that'd be a lower end. So kind of trying to hit a diversity of price points, even within this small little project. And right now we're between that 100 and 140% AMI for those homes. From a circulation perspective, we look forward to coordinating with South Main because we really want this to be stitched together. So these alleyways would have to connect into South Main and really kind of connect into the rest of the town through Carbonate in Utah and to Arizona. So just in conclusion, we're thrilled to be part of this project, and we look forward to the summer really getting into it. For us, we're happy to be able to bring attainable houses to Buena Vista. I mean, we hire 100 people and they need places to work. And I know our community needs a lot of housing. So this seems like a great place to do that. And we look forward to collaborating with the public, with the town, with the board to really, create a great community. So that's all we've got. I think the next slide is more of kind of a roadmap for the next steps.
And thank you very much. One quick another note, just to reiterate, the decision that we're asking for tonight is a green light to proceed with the community engagement plan. There's, as you can kind of tell from many things that Scott alluded to, there's so many unknowns that are still in this concept. So part of the whole purpose of the whole next will be trying to whittle down those unknowns into more knowns so that we have more to go on when we reach a final decision.
Trustees, any comments, questions? I have if you could, there was some numbers quoted on housing needs when we met with you guys all out there. Could you repeat those as it were, as to what current needs are and projected annual?
Yeah. So, I mean, current deficit in Colorado for homes, I believe it says 200,000 homes. That's current. And that's growing every year by around 45,000 homes. So there's a big need for housing in Colorado and in BV. And that need is growing. And yeah, our hope is we can put some type of dent in that, but it's a big need.
And that the reason I bring that up, that justifies the project. It's plain and simple, that need. And we saw this years ago when it was presented to us of the needs of just this valley and how far behind we were and how fast it was growing out of hand. And so it makes this whole system work, if you want to put it that way. There's always going to be a need. One question I think I'll throw out there, not a question, more of a comment. Kind of be prepared. I've been hit twice now about senior living. So it might come up in conversation if you're out in the public and talking. I've been asked what's the town doing for seniors? And I'm going, well, haven't heard anything. Nobody's proposed it. Just saying. It's been in the past, it has been, but just kind of be aware. It might come up. Just might come up. And not assisted living, just someplace for seniors to live. Other comments, go ahead.
So in the packet, we have one of the bullets is creating minimum 65 new housing units for various types, yada, yada, between 60 to 140 AMI. But in the presentation, sorry, can you go back to the presentation? Sorry.
I found your bullet right here.
Yes, that's the bullet. Because I just want to focus on the 60 AMI as being proposed on there as the bottom. But if you go back to phase one sheet, one more, or keep going to where it says phase one.
Phase one.
Yeah, I think, does it say, it says 100.
Yep.
So would that be the base or 60? That's a big difference.
It's a big difference. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it will be, difficult to hit this 60% for our single family homes right there. I think we'd like to look at how we can work with the numbers on the multifamily rentals. At this point, we're trying to make some conservative assumptions.
Sure.
We don't really know a lot about infrastructure cost. I mean, we have some ideas, but we're making conservative assumptions, and these are just where we're at right now. But I do understand that 60 is the base, and I think we're going to work to get to that if we can. But at this point, I didn't feel comfortable, promising something and then not.
I get it.
But it's a good point.
Yeah, and just because.
Sorry, just to add on to that, there is a pretty clear distinction when we look at housing affordability data between rentals and for sale.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to track with that in this project, recognizing that we want to go as low as we can in the AMI structure in phase one, which are rentals.
Okay.
Recognizing that phase two, the for sales, might need to be more in the 100 to 140. So that's just conceptually, if we're going to hit 60% AMI, it most likely will be in the rental product versus the for sale product.
Gotcha. I misunderstood. I thought some of those apartment buildings were rentals, but if that's not the
They're
case.
all rentals, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
The apartments are all rentals.
In phase one.
Yeah.
Phase
And
one.
right now, the average is around 100. But that's an average. They'll be lower, and
Gotcha.
there might be some substantially lower, but we don't really know the exact
Where that will be.
where those will be. I think that's the objective of the next 3 months, is to develop more information and be able to kind of have a better idea as to where we're going to fall in those numbers.
Great. Thank you. I just don't want to get it.
Devin.
Yeah, I have a similar comment / concern with that. I really have been looking at this project as an affordable housing. And I keep hearing the term attainable, which is great too, but I really want to see those AMIs lower than 100%, especially for apartments. That's something that I remember when the farm was initially presented. It was presented as an affordable, and then it turned into attainable, and then nurses and teacher kind of housing and police officer, which is also needed as well. But I want to make sure that we are really supporting our workforce here, and that other picture where the red to yellow as like the more expensive to the least expensive, that also worries me. I really want to make sure if the town is supporting this project that we're making it affordable and not just attainable. So.
And I would offer that that's going to be, in my opinion, the biggest piece of the conversation, especially as we get into the final sketch plan. The decisions that you all will be presented with will be in line with your original 3 outcomes, which were housing, childcare, and economic development spaces. Those 3 are sort of these nebulous bubbles right now. We're working within a bubble diagram, and we're trying to work with constituents, community members, stakeholders, potential operators to ask, what do you need and how much of it do you need in order to make an impact in this community in those goal areas? We don't have those final sizes and how those might work together.
Sure.
And a big component of that is the commercial space. If we're going to maintain, if you all are going to maintain a goal centered on childcare or centered on economic development space, the contribution town has offered is land in return for commercial space. When we run the numbers or start thinking about numbers, that oftentimes starts to cancel out. And so the commercial space has a direct relationship on the AMI level. So I just offer that. Again, we're not asking for decisions, but those are the kinds of discussions that I think will be really helpful as we move through this, is not how low can we get the affordability only, but what relationship do the other goals like commercial space have on that?
And then what kind of, as you're saying, what kind of priority are you going to put on that? How high a level are you saying that that's priority, commercial development, or not? Maybe we wiggle. That's like you say, that's a discussion that the board is going to have to live. Libby was next.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Devin.
Now that you guys are up and running, you're probably starting to get a feel for what your construction costs might be per square foot. Just in my looking at the apartments, it looks like if they were about 1,000 square feet, you might be looking at $200 a square foot as construction costs. Can you actually do that? Do you think you'll
I think
down to that level?
average square footage would not probably be, the studios are smaller than that, and 1-bedrooms are. $200 a square foot is not where we'll be for construction costs. I can tell you that.
Maybe higher?
Higher than that, yeah.
Yeah.
360.
I'm always poking around at the numbers and.
We're also trying to get them as low as possible.
Yeah.
But at this point, there's definitely a lot of unknowns, material costs, and those types of things have changed so much. I couldn't give you an exact number at this point, but it will be higher than the $200.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it works for you as a company and that it works for us as a town.
Definitely. Yeah, that's exactly where we're at.
Got to be a partnership.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. Gina.
My question actually deals with I think this was brought up before about the childcare area portion. Are we potentially working with the school district on that? Is there some combo of, so how would that play out within this? Because would they be hey, it's time to talk about, right? What is there a give and take there? They have land, and if we're going to provide, what are the details there?
I think we would be looking at them to be a long-term tenant to pay
Okay,
into this whole system. Right, so they essentially are part of the subsidizing the whole thing. You can jump in there if you've had other conversations with them, but essentially that's how we're approaching it. We could get creative and start talking about swaps of other things, but I think right now we're looking for financial partners to make the numbers work.
Yeah, and whether that financial contribution to offset the costs comes in the form of a long-term lease or a for sale condominium ownership of their space is to be determined. And to be honest, that's another decision point that you all will be presented with should they continue to express dire interest or not dire, but interest in this.
It's dire, believe me.
I was gonna say.
I think there's a larger community benefit question which you all will need to wrestle with, which is they are also going to be providing community benefit. Therefore, how much cost recovery are we going to need? And that will obviously dictate or relate to housing affordability.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Which brings up a question. I thought I read somewhere in the packet that the school was interested in space for preschool. If we did a space for preschool, there's only so much building that you can do there. Would that take away from our first priority of childcare? Because if you have that as preschool, all that space is preschool. If your child isn't in preschool, you're not going to be getting the daycare.
So the initial conversations are around both their seedlings program, which is a 1 and walking and up, and their preschool. So they're looking for a facility solution for both of those pieces. If they are identified by you all as and if they continue to be interested as the right partner on Carbonate Street, they would be the childcare provider. There would not be space for another daycare operator as well.
And it seemed to me, if I remember right in that conversation, they were talking like a split, like 3 and up was 5 was one group, and then under 3 was another group, and those were divided and funded differently too, if I remember correctly. But there's a need for both of those, and that's like you say, that space, it could be gobbled up in no time to accommodate either one or both of those. Just real quick.
It's pretty clear to us that if that is the partner and the direction we want to go, it's going to consume most of that commercial / childcare space.
Most of the commercial space.
It essentially would take almost all the commercial space. Maybe not all, but close to.
Be pretty easy when you start putting people to square feet. They had, I remember at the one meeting, they mentioned there were 75 families looking for daycare in those age groups. That's a lot of kids right away. But any other questions? So we're looking for a motion to authorize the launch of the public input and design campaign.
As I will make the motion for the green light as requested. Go ahead for the public input campaign.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second it.
I think Libby was first. Further discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay.
Yes.
Trustee McCarthy.
Yes.
Trustee Rowe.
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Trustee Wilkie.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Going to be some interesting conversation. But very important. Next item. I had a comment, but I'm not going. Policy discussion regarding noise. Trustees and staff will discuss possible changes to the existing noise ordinance. Staff has. I don't know if we'll touch with the public comment. Maybe he'll touch on public comment.
We can, yeah. I think.
Because he's here.
Yeah, I think nested within the discussion here is the recognizing that the current code doesn't support staff in addressing all nuisance type things related to noise. So I'll let Grant do a better job of explaining that, but Grant, are you on?
Yes, well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Board. I'm here tonight to discuss noise. As Philip said, over time, staff has noted that some differences between what has been tolerated over time and what our code says are apparent. We also want to highlight some of the difficulties we have in enforcing, especially this just noise section. The point of this presentation is to begin a conversation. Staff has outlined some thoughts to get the board's feedback. None of the numbers presented or any of the times are set in stone. Instead, they're just ideas to guide this conversation. In the end, we seek direction from the board on this topic. Should staff seek an ordinance change, or is the board comfortable with what we currently have? While putting this together, it is important to note and thank all that have helped bring this forward. The staff has sought feedback from various business owners, spoken with our police department and our prosecution team, as well as put the idea out on the platform from IBV. I printed out and placed all the input from that online discussion. Paula should have had that as an attachment to the packet, and I want to thank every person that provided insight and feedback to that topic. First thing to dig into is research on decibels. This has proven to be one of the more complex code changes staff has looked at, especially in Chapter 7. While a decibel is something that we can measure, for many factors, it changes how that measurement is made. For example, in a controlled setting such as my patrol vehicle, a police radio at half volume showed up as 60 decibels, where when a chainsaw was running at 100 feet, that chainsaw at 100 feet in an outdoor environment came up as 65 decibels. This goes to further illustrate the outside influences that go into playing with measurements of noise, as well as the sound being emitted. I've listed a reference guide put in by Yale University in my report. These numbers are to help guide the conversation when discussing policy. They are there to get the thought going on what should be a reasonable noise threshold at a certain distance to you or your neighbor. As a quick introduction to policy, after many meetings with stakeholders for input and feedback, and after researching with other municipalities, staff has come up with a simple three-pronged approach that staff feels makes the most sense for our community and meets the spirit of all the discussions we had. We also feel that these proposals do an excellent job of balancing the needs of our citizens with the wants of our businesses. To review what our old code currently says, a violation occurs with noise. If done after 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., so in the nighttime sevens, no noise must be continuous for more than 5 minutes or occur for more than 10 minutes in the 1 hour period, and that threshold is set at 50 decibels. From 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., same conditions of no noise being continuous for more than 5 minutes or occur for more than 10 minutes in a 1 hour period, and that threshold is set to 55 decibels. The problems with what we have currently is it puts an officer on the scene for over an hour to determine that those thresholds were met, as well as the 7 p.m. really discounts downtown businesses from having live music as it currently reads. In research, we kind of looked at a bunch of different policies and kind of put together a proposal on what we thought would work best for the town. The first one is an exceeding decibel sound prohibited. This would be a non-complaint driven section where we wouldn't need a complaint to enforce. It would set the benchmark from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. That 10 p.m. comes from a lot of feedback. People are really comfortable with that number of 10 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. And no noise greater than 70 decibels from the property line, with the affirmable defense of its noise emitted by the government, something we permitted, trash service or snow removal. And in that section, we'd also set times and thresholds for construction noise and lawn maintenance. The next section would be quiet enjoyment of the home, which would be a complaint-driven ordinance where a complaint would have to come in before we would investigate. It allows officers to receive a complaint and deal with it efficiently. It sets the standard as a reasonable person with normal hearing. So basically the way it would work is a complaint would come in, we would go investigate either PD or code enforcement. And based on the complaint and the reasonableness of the officer, we can either have a conversation or enforce the ordinance as set. And while all the same affirmable defenses, normally government noise, permitted special events, trash service, snow removal would apply. The Other section is unreasonable noise prohibited, which again would be another complaint driven where we would not need to have a measurement. It's another tool to assist with enforcing noise. It outlaws and outlines amplified sound past 10 p.m. if loud enough to disturb a person of normal hearing at 100 feet from the property line. In residential, which we would like to include MU1 and MU2 in residential, and 150 feet in commercial being MUMS, HCI, and potentially South Main. This would also include unreasonable unamplified noise such as screaming, yelling to the same standard. As you can see, this can be a really challenging issue to understand and enforce. What staff has brought forward is based on research from across the state, but more importantly, it is here to begin the conversation about what the board would like to see regarding noise. At the end of the conversation, staff asks that the board give feedback on this topic and whether an ordinance change is necessary, and if so, with what standards or what the board is currently happy with what we have. I thank you for your time and look forward to the conversation. Are there any questions?
Trustees. That was a lot of information, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Just comments. Go ahead, Dave.
Just a question, as far as decibel measurement, is our law enforcement, do they have equipment to measure that, monitor that?
Currently, between code enforcement and police, we have 1 decibel meter. So we do have the capability to pass it off and use it.
Sweet. Thank you.
More questions, comments? You need more thought process to think about it, dig into it.
I'll go with one more then. In reference to the public comment earlier tonight with I think that the statement with the code that exists now with the dog complaint, there was something about provocation of the animal. This would circumvent that and just allow a little more, I don't want to say common sense, but a little more enforceability than what is there in that regard.
To be clear, we do have a separate dog barking ordinance in place, which is completely separate than the actual noise ordinance. So when looking at a dog bark, how we currently have it written, that would just fall under noise dog. And I think that's chapter 7, section 136, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the code open in front of me right now. But that's the standards in which that complaint was brought forward the decision was based on those standards, not of noise. So to be clear, there's 2 separate currently ordinance dealing with noise, one being for dog and one being for overall noise.
I guess I was including that in 3, section 2. Now I read it there. It says, or any other noise that a human voice can make. I had put non-human as I read that in my cursory.
But it's a good time to just highlight that there is that difference in ordinance currently that we have.
Other questions?
Maybe it could be a human or an animal noise. I've heard of people being really upset with big birds that make a lot of noise, like a parrot. That might make a big
I can see
squawk.
that.
There's a dog near me that alerts on, I'm 200 feet away and it just starts barking. It is irritating.
My thoughts are. Go ahead,
Nick, I'm sorry. That's been one of the more difficult things about approaching this topic is everyone's threshold for noise is very different. And you get over time, I've heard a lot of different complaints over noise, and trying to balance all of that has been very interesting to try to accomplish.
I would also just add, as Grant emphasized, this was brought to you for discussion. So we're not looking for this specific decibel or this. If you have thoughts, we want to take them, but it is something that we do want a little direction on, so we know how to bring it back if you do want to bring it back. I will also just point out, I think you caught the gist, but right now our code doesn't really speak to amplified sound after 7 p.m. That's kind of weird given our downtown and music culture that we do have here. Now, of course, special event permitting allows that. But we're trying to address the reality a bit of these areas and a potential code update as well. So summer's coming. So I'm not to speed this along faster than it needs to, but there's some potential conflicts.
I would speak to something of that nature, I guess, like thinking about like, if right now at 7 o'clock is a quiet time goes into effect after that. I mean, like you said, summer's coming. I mean, it's still light out and pretty like quiet down. I mean, this is the time when most people are outside enjoying all kinds of things. So to think that we should keep it at 7, I would like to see it bump a bit later till 10 o'clock. I think that's a very natural time frame. So I wouldn't mind seeing that pushed back later than what it is personally.
And just so the board knows, the 10 p.m. is not really an arbitrary number. It is a number I've seen consistent across a lot of codes and is based on a lot of feedback from not only business owners, but citizens, as well as a number that they're pretty comfortable with being that's the quiet time to start.
Yeah, I like what was presented, and I'd be interested in seeing something like that brought forward.
Let me ask the board, does it make sense to, and I'm going back to public comment, does it make sense to keep those two separate? In other words, the noise of the barking dog, animals, whatever, is that this is one standalone and then there will be another standalone for noise for that? And that's just a question.
How does Grant feel about that? Would he want it to
Obviously.
be included or
Obviously.
separate?
What do you think, Grant? How is, I mean, I think the question is a definition. We need a definition. That's the question that I hear from public comment. What do you think about keeping them separate, Grant, or tying them together?
I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna have to punt that one to legal because it's also very common from what I've researched that there's a noise ordinance and a dog noise ordinance. Why the separation, I can't tell you. But I've seen that as a very common thing. If it's something simple to bring in and we can enforce as one, maybe that's something we can entertain. But to give you that exact answer, I would have to punt to legal.
I'm here. Yeah, you know, I mean, it really depends on how you want to regulate noise and animal noise and dog noise. I'd probably keep them separate because I think dog noise is unique. And it's really going to depend upon how you craft your overall noise ordinance. There's so many ways to do it. Regulating noise is incredibly difficult. It's just one of those things. It's just really difficult to make easy and simple. But I would keep them separate just because I think you could regulate them a little bit differently.
Okay. You know, I can accept that. That's just a comment that I wanted to raise just because public brought it forward. I think it deserves further discussion. If you want, you know, there you go. I'm talking, go ahead.
I also saw in the MyBB comments somewhere, motorcycles, you know, these great big loud motorcycles it's amazing that they get past noise ordinances. It seems like we ought to include that.
Mine ain't noisy. But I don't, when I was at 118, I don't know how they're on the road. Back in the day, and I'll say not just motorcycles.
Yeah.
There were a lot of vehicles with straight pipes and stuff like that. And I go, you know, I remember back in the 80s, that was not legal and you got pulled over for it all the time. So I don't know how that has changed or not changed.
So the board,
go ahead.
So the board is aware there is currently, and I haven't played with it, I'm just looking more at enforcement. We do have noise vehicle regulations currently in our code set forth, and we have dealt with some complaints on loud vehicles. Surprisingly, very few have come back as meeting the threshold that has been set forward in the codes. I'd encourage the board to look at that. And moving forward, I would like, the more I've been reading those, maybe we could look more at the vehicles. The impetus of this discussion was really the enforceability of neighborhood noise. I didn't really think of vehicle noise. So that would be something we would bring back in the ordinance. if brought forward by the board.
And again, and I'll go, that's no different than traffic enforcement or anything else. You know, if the officer isn't there, the officer isn't there. You can't be everywhere and hear everybody all the time. I agree, Grant. This is what's being presented. So thoughts, would you like to see any comments that you would like changed on this that makes sense? Are we looking for a presentation, Philip, next, or a ordinance next, ordinance change next meeting?
It could be a continued conversation before we draft an ordinance. Yeah, it depends on how close we are or if there's more to consider.
The one place I think of, and just because I've been in other areas, but it would make sense to me in the downtown that time could be extended to a later time. For example, let's say there's a band and they're playing until midnight. Are they going to surpass that noise ordinance? But that's where it's at. What about South? I mean, of course, South Main has their own ballpark thing there, but they still, I just see in certain areas, there may be an entertainment district. I'll just lack of a better way to put it. There's a place where it might be acceptable, not in residential. But maybe on Main Street, it is acceptable to be later, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night for more noise because they're having bands in the summer. Just a thought.
Is that something a board would be entertaining, a kind of zoned noise ordinance?
I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just saying.
I would chew on that.
Downtown.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have that structure. Is there more short-term rentals there? And I know that's by design, that's what you're looking for in certain areas, but it's an entertainment area. It's always amazed me, and I'm not going to say just here, but in a lot of areas, when you drive down Main Street at 9 o'clock, it's closed.
Yeah.
And I go, are you kidding me? And I don't know who to point the finger at on that one. People that own the business or what, they just close. And I go,
I feel like,
you know, it's kind of the conversation I had with, I'm sorry, you guys. Your overhead's paid. Why do you close at 9 o'clock?
yeah,
You can bring in business at till 10 or 11. Why aren't you open until 10 or 11 or 12 and if you have a way to bring in that business, whether it be entertainment, music, why are you not doing that? See, those are the questions I have now. Does our ordinance prohibit that? So therefore the guys aren't doing that? I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Staffing.
Yeah, it's just
I'm not going to say it isn't.
staffing hours.
I'm going to say it isn't. It's just the thought that, wow, man, I can remember back in the day when I was in that age group and running around town, you didn't go home until 1 or 2 in the morning.
We just approved the rooftop bar, right?
Mhm.
That's open air. So 7 o'clock, is it quiet time? Like, I mean,
Well, and I could see that easily being the 10. I agree with the
Right,
10. I think
right.
that makes a lot of sense. But let's say they have somebody up there playing music.
I think 10 o'clock, I think it sounds good until someone comes forward with something that they want to change. I don't see anyone asking for later specifically.
With that rooftop bar, there's residents across the alley behind it. So I think that 10 o'clock is probably appropriate.
Mhm.
I would also, I'm probably not going to be here when this is approved. I would like to ask that whatever, I like the direction we're going. I'll start there. And I think that this is pretty dang close to what I would envision. But whatever we do, I'd like to ask for a decompression or a revisiting the ordinance and the intention before the season and see what the complaints and problems and requests were after the season so that we know if we're on target or off target with the 10 o'clock or if we need to talk about an entertainment district again or whatever. But I think that this one's got to be treated as a living document and absolutely revisited season by season.
And obviously Grant can bring that back with results, comments. I'm just throwing thoughts out there, just throwing things because our main street should be an entertainment area. If you're going to have entertainment, that's where it should be. Any other thoughts for Grant?
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, do you have the direction?
Always take a motion.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to move forward with this proposed ordinance.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Do you need any clarification, Grant, on this, or are you clear as to what the discussion is? Is it as-
About as clear as mud,
Gotcha.
which is normal, but
That's where I was, and that's why I said that, by the way, was so.
the only
So-
question I really have is on, we had a discussion of potentially looking at zoning. Is that something the board would want us to bring forward, research, propose, or kind of leave alone and move forward with what we kind of have?
Leave it alone.
There's a little bit of zoning in this idea.
There's a little bit.
There is some, yeah.
And by that, I mean, would you like to see a different threshold for commercial districts at certain time levels, or do you want to kind of keep the same moving forward with the way what we have proposed? Do you want us to try to zone it a little further or just leave what we have?
I'd say keep it as we have. I think it gets, I would think it'd be too hard to enforce if we make different zones and different levels and whatnot.
And this is bringing us to the 10 PM time frame also, if I read this correctly.
Correct. And just so the board remembers, anytime after 10, if a business wishes to have outdoor or amplified music, they can still apply for a noise permit with the town, which is something we can evaluate and make that determination. So we can have past 10 potentially, but that 10 o'clock would be that threshold for that permit to be pulled.
Any other questions?
I think we need to encourage people to comment on the mybv.com.
That would be very good.
I really applaud Joseph for bringing that platform forward, because the engagement I've been really impressed with.
It has been good. It really has been. Does the board wish to give it more time with those comments, or do you want to proceed with your motion?
Proceed with the motion.
Okay. So we did have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee McCrasky?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe?
Yes.
Trustee Swisher?
Yes.
And Trustee Wilson? Yes.
All righty. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Grant.
Thank you all.
Obviously, it was brought up, so kind of put the thought into, I think what and we'll go into trustee staff, we'll mention it a little bit more, but let's say definitions when it comes to dog barking or something like that, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep, that's that conversation's already begun.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, staff reports, town administrator.
All right, so several things to update you all on, so bear with me. The first thing I'm going to mention is something that occurred at the last meeting. We had Trustee Nyberg step down from his position, and we already let the public know. It was published in the paper once already, but before we go too far down that appointment process, I want to make sure the board gives us a motion to actually go through that process. So as you all remember, last year, when we went through this, the board does have a decision whether to go through appointment or actually go through an election to fill this vacancy. So staff assumes that you will probably go through an appointment process, but we would like for a motion to make sure for the record that is what you all would like to do. So
what's the cost of an election, just to have that out there?
What is it, Paul, about $8 grand?
About $8 grand.
Wow, that was a good guess.
it's like we've talked about it before, huh?
Not long ago, as a matter of fact, if I remember right.
Yeah, roughly $8,000.
I think
I will add to that, that's if you get enough people who step up for the election. We just had the petition process for the election that was canceled because we had.
No guts, no glory. That's all I say. Got to go for it.
Have there been any?
So motion to what?
Appoint Duff.
Motion to appoint
Motion to direct staff to proceed with appointing the vacant trustee position.
Second.
Starting the appointment process.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you, Devin. Second, Lucrezi, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then real quick, in terms of timing of that. So Jeff could say it better than I, but the guidance, what we have to meet is a 60-day deadline for the board to appoint and fill that position. And that's from the date of resignation, which was March 14th.
Received on Friday, March 11th.
11th. Okay. So that essentially staff picked May 10th to bring forward those letters of interest and have the board make a decision. The reason for that was with the new trustees of the new board taking their seats and the shuffle that's going to create on April 26th. That's kind of a awkward meeting already. And if you throw in appointment of another trust, it's an odd meeting, but it is an option if the board would like to do it sooner. Otherwise, May 10th complies with a 60-day timeline. So thoughts?
So I might suggest just the fact that if you don't have many up, let's say only one person signs up or something like that, maybe you could bring them in at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
On the 26th of April?
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you don't have 2 or 3 people jumping in line for appointment, I guess you still have that week that you would still have an opening for somebody to make up their mind, but it's just an option.
So they're supposed to submit letters by May 2nd, right?
I think that's how we drafted it, correct?
How we drafted it.
I like that timing myself. So they can submit their letters and then we can interview them. We need a work session, right, on the 10th.
I think we're going to integrate. We have so much coming up on agenda. I think we're going to integrate it into the regular meeting. But if we think we can do that and it'll work well. But yes, it would be early in the meeting on the 10th.
We don't have to have a double vote that way.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
With the 2nd and then the 10th, it gives our incoming trustees and mayor to get their seats a little warm before they decide who they want to work with them.
I think they'll be okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
With that.
Thank you all. The next thing I wanted to mention was while I was out, it turns out there was a little grass fire in the area. What's going on?
I gotta say no.
But in all seriousness, that obviously is pretty scary for the community and sent our staff into emergency response mode. And I wanted to recognize Chaffey County Fire for their efforts to contain that fire with the winds that day. That fire could have easily gotten out of hand. So they did an amazing job. Chaffey Sheriff as well was very much on scene, BVPD. Our staff at Town Hall, Paula, Joel in support, and then the front office jumped in, starting getting evacuation sites ready in case they were needed. And Grant, I know, was also helping set up incident command at the airport. So I was taking calls from way down in Texas as this was unfolding and been in freak out mode, but it was amazing the communication flow back to me. And I think the board also received some communication. So I want to recognize those people involved because that's a scary thing right now. That's not to say there wasn't plenty of lessons learned, and we've talked about that internally, especially on communication flow. And I know our community received some notice that was lacking some detail that I think may have caused a little more concern than was justified at the moment. So that's one thing. But the timing of this is very interesting because we've been planning to, after the new trustees take their seats, organize a emergency operations or emergency response training with the board and key staff. So we have a very good example to use for that training. So Rich Atkins, our Chaffee County emergency manager, is helping me organize that. And we're looking at mid-May. And I targeted Saturday, but given the amount of workload right now on staff, I'd be curious if the board could be flexible to possibly do this on a weekday. So I just wanted to pose that. And I know Sue and Mark will be the ones.
Very tired.
Well, so.
Sure. Take a day.
But it seemed like an opportunity, so I posed that. Any feedback on timing of that?
And I will.
About 2 to 3 hours.
Obviously, I'm going to say, I appreciate the fact that you're taking staff into account, saying, you know, we're really under it here. And so any help from the board would be appreciated. Same.
Cindy,
Well, for some of us that are still working, could we specify late in the afternoon to make it easier?
That's the feedback I need. Yes, that'd be great. Okay. I'll communicate through email on some possible dates and times. Okay, thank you. All right, moving along.
Probably not, but.
Jeff, you come off mute for a reason? Did I mess up with something?
No, you're good. Sorry, I'll go back to mute.
Oh, no. All right. Heads up on some ongoing projects. We have at our next meeting, we will have a work session with the Chaffee Housing Authority Director, Becky Gray, and a subcommittee that's been looking at a potential ballot question this fall related to funding for housing authority and projects that they can do for affordable and attainable housing. So look forward to that. There was public comment regarding the franchise agreement. And as you know, we've been working on that for a number of months now. I do want to highlight that there was some clarification to our process, and this is okay. But we will have a first reading of that with you all on April 26th. And bringing that back for a second reading and possible adoption on May 10th. So that's the timeline we're on right now. Also gives us a little more time for public involvement in that process.
Just to reiterate on that too, because it's already in the agreement, the thought is we're going to look at that agreement every 5 years anyway.
Correct. That was one of the very first things that we had identified was the opportunity for a check-in more regular for specific reasons, not just because
not the whole process or anything, just
right. Not because the town administrator is grumpy that day and therefore let's open this thing up, although we could add that. But it would define specifically reasons for that, but more of a 5-year check-in. So it's good to hear the public basically voicing support of that concept. The rodeo grounds master plan well underway, more public engagement that's been happening. I'm sure you all have seen that. And another thing that we would bring back as a presentation on April 26th with the idea of maybe adoption of that master plan on May 10th. Here we go. We are excited about the new police station and work continues on that. As a reminder, we did submit for a DOLA grant application for $600,000. We will have a meeting with the DOLA representation on April 6th to go over our application. So I will tuck in my shirt that day. But we are excited about that. Even bigger news on the waterfront, we found out last week or the week before that our application through the Colorado Water Conservation Board, CWCB, that our phase 1 of our water infiltration gallery expansion project, we were granted $1.1 million. This is huge. That covers half the cost of this phase 1 gallery expansion. And I do want to recognize Greg Felt, Commissioner, who also sits on the board for CWCB. Very good advocate for our area on that board. So tremendous news. We're very, very excited about that. Sean and his team obviously played a big role in this, but we are working with other partners. And so I just wanted to recognize that Upper Ark helped consult with that grant application, as did Paul Young, who's helping kind of get us through the financing plan for all of this. So outstanding to have those partners. The other thing that I have as an attachment to my report is our senators and representatives are going through the congressionally directed spending requests, the CDS process right now. And you have a letter attached to my report right here. And there's a very short window. They're due by April 8th. And I'll just read briefly what CDS is, just for people that may not know another acronym, but this is a mechanism by which members of Congress can request funding for specific projects in their home state that have been submitted for consideration by state and local government entities and nonprofits. Funding for projects, if approved, would be distributed as part of federal appropriations process during fiscal year 23. So that's October 2022 to September 2023. The idea is that we could submit our phase 2 of our water plant expansion, the filtration part, through this process and see if we can get our senators to support and potentially get federal dollars towards this project. So I am asking for the board to approve that letter of support so that we can get that submitted. Any questions about that process?
I just, I read this and this does sound like something I would say. If there was emphasis, if you could read emphasis into the statement, he was able to visit a few times in the past decade. Oh, he was governor, I'm sorry. We could drop decade would be, in the past.
Okay.
That just saying it would, to me, it would sound a little better.
Okay.
That does sound like something I would say though.
It's just truth, but
not like going out of your way in 10 years and come see us. But anyway, board, I would be happy to sign this on behalf of the town. If I'd have a motion.
I like it. I'll make that motion that you
Okay.
sign this letter after you get rid of decade.
Second.
Or you could put it in bold, one way or the other.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
thank you all. very
Thank you,
much.
Philip.
That concludes my report.
Very good. Good news on the waterfront.
Mhm.
Big, really big. That helps a lot. Really helps a lot. Next on the agenda, I lost my paper. Treasurer, Michelle.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. My report is on page 85 of the packet. And after the URLs for the transparency website and the budget books, this is another piece of our water project. We have been allotted approximately $720,000 from the ARPA funds, from the ARPA bill that passed back in, I think it was January of last year. And yeah, I may be wrong on that because we received the first tranche of that in June of 2021 and we'll of 360,000, and we'll receive the second tranche of it in a couple of months. Treasury has come out with the rules and what they expect us to do as far as reporting, and our first report that I'm going to have to file is due on April 20th of 2022, and it's a preliminary report. but we have to tell them approximately what we are planning to use this money for. We wanted to bring this forward to the board to consider. Staff has proposed that we use $100,000 of the 720 towards the Carbonate Street program. And then the remainder, we were hoping to have you allocate that, the remainder of 620,000 towards the water projects. This goes into, it gets to be another piece of the financing for the filtration and the surface plant projects. And probably any questions on that piece of my report? Because I know we're going to have to talk about it.
I've got a question about the Carbonate Street money. What specifically is that? Maybe a broader question. What is our financial commitment to Carbonate Street beyond the land? I didn't realize it was that big.
0 at the moment. But we're holding in the budget, the 2022 budget actually has $100,000 allocated towards that project. And that essentially is a placeholder until we get to the point of the specifics that were discussed tonight, the price points and various things going on. There may be things that the board wants to achieve that will require additional contribution. We have spent a little bit of money on surveying, but it certainly is not in the $100,000 range. So that's kind of where we're at.
Is there an opportunity similar to like the Collegiate Commons project where we received that large grant? Is there any way to help with that project as well?
You want to speak to that, Joseph?
I guess that's a whole nother.
Yeah, and that was a LIHTC project that received financing, and that reduced the AMI levels that could apply for that. But I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, they're LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits are a great funding mechanism for reaching really low AMIs, but they're incredibly competitive. And one of the key criteria for that competitiveness and applications is how recently a project was done in your region. So Buena Vista itself might start to become a competitive town over the next couple of years because Collegiate Commons opened 4 years ago. But Salida Ridge, which is a 44 unit apartment building, has just got awarded LIHTC credits in Salida. There's also a couple of other projects in the valley that might be pursuing those funding sources. So the possibility that could come into play for Carbonate Street is almost zero. It's just not, it's not a practical funding source.
Okay. Interesting.
And it doesn't really hit our target market.
Right.
Where we're trying to get the teachers and the police officers.
Philip, are you looking for a motion, head nod?
Yeah, I think this, I guess a motion, of course, this is already represented in the budget, right? So this isn't, and this isn't actually locking the town into spending these funds this way. At this point, we still have a long way to go with the Carbonate Street project. But I would say that our idea of using a lot of this towards water projects, and it's not only the water expansion project, it's also the well number 3 expansion to get us through our peak times. That's in the budget, but this seems like an opportunity to use those funds in a way that it just keeps us moving with those things. And yeah, so.
And if I heard Michelle correctly, there has to be a letter proposed or a proposal of how that money is going to be used, and it has to be in by.
Correct, by the end of April.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to.
April 30th is the preliminary report due date, and I have to log on to Treasury and just give them a summary of what we're planning to do with it.
Okay, so there's no formal letter signature, So all we need, board, is to direct staff to proceed as proposed. I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to direct staff to proceed forward with what is proposed.
I'll second it.
Second pay, further discussion? And like you say, it's in the budget. We don't have to, and this is an award, so we're not budgeting money. So this would be just an all in favor, say aye. To direct staff.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. You have
Thank
more.
you. Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So the sales tax came in for the first month of 2022. It's attributable to January. It came in at 301,000. And as you can see in the grid, it is down just a smidge. And I wanted to let you guys be aware of that this may be a slight trend for the year, mostly because COVID has relaxed quite a bit. A lot of the travel is not directed towards near places that people are choosing to travel further away rather than within 2 hours. And so this trend may affect the rest of the year. If I want to come back up to the local versus remote, but let's go down to the graph here, and you can see a little bit more. There you go. This magenta colored bar is 2022, and it is less than 2021, but not by much. And so I guess my prediction would be that the year may trend to be slightly less than the previous year, but probably not substantially less. I do believe we'll probably still hit budget, but not extreme increases like we have been seeing. So just a seed in your brain for that. And then back up to the local versus remote. It's interesting to look at the little bit more. There you go. Is the remote is what is smaller, has a decrease from the previous year, which is interesting to me. The local is higher. So there's some mixed indicators, which probably makes a lot of sense being mixed up because that's what the economy seems to be right now, is mixed up. So just food for thought, just throwing these numbers out just so that you're not caught off guard if things continue along this path or change for the better. That would be nice too. So, and then the remainder of my report is town expenditures, payroll, ACH, and expenditures over $2,000. And I would be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Questions for Michelle? Go ahead, Dave.
Can I ask about the $6,000 for a bus donation?
Yeah.
I can pass that to Shane.
Yes, and if it was light, you could look out the window and see it out there.
So eat a lunch in
Wait a minute.
We don't want to say that. It's going to go through a little bit of process of licensing registration for that. But yeah, so basically we have been shopping for the vehicle for the rec department. We had $15,000 in the budget this year for that. We had also received $4,000 a couple years ago from the Optimists for the purchase of a rec department bus. And so we were shopping around and we found one, and we sent it to the school district just to say, hey, what do you think of this? Just to get their eyes on it. And they said, we're actually getting rid of one next week. So it's an old BB schools vehicle that I'm sure Duck has looked at many times. We're able.
I wish you would have called.
Just kidding. And the school district has some kind of process where it doesn't have to go out for auction if they donate it to a municipality. So they donated the bus to the town. The town donated them the cost of the bus. So we got a really great deal, and now we have a bus.
It'll get us through a few years.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment, and I remember when fuel went to $4 a gallon previously, and Buena Vista didn't suffer. And it was for the exact same concept. People didn't drive further. They were able to come short trip up here, spend their money and go home, and they saved on gas. So I'm not saying it won't impact.
Good point.
And yours was remote sales was the big jump or the big change. So now that we're tracking remote, we're going to see some of that difference, but I don't see a big impact. I really don't. People will stay close to home because they can't afford to buy 2 tanks of gas or 3 or 4. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But thank you, Michelle, for your report.
You're welcome.
Planning director.
Right. I will keep my remarks relatively brief. The first page of my report on page 88 of your packet is kind of the normal summary of a lot of things that we're looking at in the department right now. Happy to chat about any one of those, but I'll probably keep moving. I wanted to focus a little bit on the updated water dashboard on page 89. Based on conversations that you all had, I think it was February 22nd, March 8th, somewhere in there. You all had made some dedications or some reservations on SFEs. And so we as staff wanted to represent those in a modified water dashboard. So I just wanted to call attention to this. I'll walk through it very briefly, happy to entertain questions, but also, as always, this dashboard is for you all. So if there's other ways that we can represent you, it can be useful to do. In the upper left, we have our SFEs that are current usable based on our water rights, and that's based on dry year 2511. And then we have really summarized in the middle there a total essentially spoken for or in use SFEs, which results in our net available water. Now that number is a lot lower than what you've seen over the previous months. And we can look down at the next section, which kind of breaks down why that is. And so that middle number at the very top, which was the summary of the increase in dedicated, is a result of a sum of all these numbers. So this represents the 1% reserve that you all set up. So 1% of our total 2,500 or 2,511, so we round up 26 SFE. You all dedicated the SFEs for Carbonate Street to make sure that project has water. Now I want to offer a distinction in that case. This doesn't mean that Carbonate Street doesn't have to pay the water dedication fee, but it does mean that even if it takes longer than we want it to build, and for some reason we don't have available SFEs out in the general pool, we have a dedicated pool that they can then pull from. And then 125 SFEs for infill, which is loosely defined as east of the railroad tracks, not including South Main. So any questions here? I know there's kind of a lot of numbers, but we reorganized this a little bit to try to make it more straightforward, I guess.
Questions?
Just in terms of formatting it, I was getting confused by all the numbers being lined up in a row, but the last 4 numbers are what make up the third number.
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of offset those a little bit, or
sure,
maybe put some subtotals or totals. Yeah, I like it.
Other questions, comments?
That concludes my report.
Good. Thank you very much. Always good information. Public Works.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. Am I coming through okay?
You're good.
Okay, good. My report is on page 90 in the packet. Yep, you're there already. So yeah, the good news is the unaccounted trend is continuing the first couple months into 2022. So we've seen this unaccounted total stay pretty consistent for quite a few quarters now. So hopefully this trend continues as we move into and out of the year. I'll pause a little bit on the Ivy League report. I apologize for not putting much detail on that. I know that's something that's very high level and of great importance, but I'll kind of give you a little bit of an update what we have there. So we brought in we outsourced a consultant to test some of our well meters. Just one at the River Park Pavilion, so well 3 test meter. And while he was here, we brought him up to the Ivy League to verify that brand new meter was actually calibrated according to manufacturers, and it was, and everything's fine. Where I'm going with this is the consultant also provides a leak detection service. So I kind of set him up on a blind date with the Ivy League team, and they hit it off. Thanks for getting a chuckle there. The cool thing is he brings in the technology that we think that supports their challenge, and so it's that it's kind of a gas application. It's approved by the state, but anyways, I think that we're probably on the right track with that. Although that unaccounted looks horrible still. We knocked off what we found 4 or 5 gallons a minute, and it's still pretty high. Those numbers are pretty skewed this month. But the cool thing is that it's helping us, and you can look at the charts and you can kind of see, where we're at, combined with what the water department has done the last few years in 2021. And, looking what we chipped away so far at Ivy League. I mean, gosh, we made 8.5 million gallons of water in February 2022. And you can look at 2021 and 2020 and kind of see that has definitely made a significant impact, a positive impact into our unaccounted. We just need to keep moving forward with Ivy League. And boy, if we're lucky, and everything holds together and we get the Ivy League contained, and I mean, we could really see some really good unaccounted numbers, 12%, 8%, somewhere in there. So, and then as we start using more water, I think we'll probably start to see that trend follow kind of the typical things that we've seen over the years. A little bit of an update for the water plant. I got a few things here, so I'm going to probably go through this and just kind of capture some of these key dates, and just to give everybody an idea of what's coming. So April and May, we have some public meetings and some public notices coming up. So we're fast tracking that. So the public notice and public comment, we're going to have the minimum window for that. So 30 days. I should be getting a draft pretty soon to look at. And when I get that, I'll be sharing it with the team and the Water Advisory Board as well. Wow, we got a grant for an amazing grant. One I'd just like to kind of reiterate, personal thanks to Gracie Goodwin and to Matt Stearns as well with CWCB. Matt provided us the wind in our sails, and a great resource to help us get kind of on the fast track to get that application submitted. Really, really helpful people. That sign we have when you come into town really puts it on. it really says it all. The well 3 update as well. Just going to kind of highlight a few things. I think the big thing that we get out of this, I captured this information from a several page report. I didn't feel the need to put all of it in there, but I just wanted to kind of highlight a few sections in it. The Aquifer Test provided by Right Water is complete, and the results are really good. So they have produced some really good opportunities in that area for well 3, and you know, if there's a possibility of us ever moving forward with well 4, this is really good data to support the you know, the location, and feel pretty confident that a little bit larger well, or a much larger well, would be able to produce quite a bit of water. We saw that 6-inch pump that we had in there is capable of producing 500 gallons a minute. If we had a larger casing with a larger standpipe, it'd be able to produce much more. And I think Right Water landed at about 900 gallons a minute. So really good data that came from that. Right Water did make a recommendation, an efficiency recommendation of 300 gallons per minute. And that's kind of what we thought initially going into this. So it's always refreshing that our hunches sometimes pay off. But yeah, well 3 is a beast. It's hasn't met its full potential yet. So we'll keep moving forward on that project. A few things that I'll kind of get through with each of the public works departments. We installed some sidewalks at Collegiate Peaks Bank, and came out really good. That sidewalk's open. Had a little bit of a hiccup on the street paving RFP. I'm going to be resubmitting that this week. And we're also going to be working on sweeping and street cleanups. We have a lot of gutters to clean, a lot of streets to clean up. I think that's probably going to keep us busy for the rest of the week. The Parks Department, having a big impact. I just want to bring attention to some of our new hires, Allison Hopkins, Christopher Hartley, and Griffin Hagan. Their presence has been noticed, and I don't know, we're working on a few things early on. March has been a great month for us to get out in the field. They've got a jump on the Main Street Xeric Gardens. We're doing some soil conditioning and reworking that and bringing in some boulders. And yeah, there's a baseball tournament this week. I'm going to kick the tires on trying to get those guys, figure out a way to get those guys some water on the field. I don't know why they're scheduling baseball tournaments in Buena Vista in April or late March, but I'm joking. I can't wait to watch some baseball this weekend. Took me a bit of time to get this back to you. So Mayor Lacey's probably aware of this trail recognition, little blurb in my report. I guess the one thing is I don't have any really good language for you, but I kind of saw this with the youth baseball field, where there was some historic recognition that was provided there. But what we have is a community member that has provided staff an opportunity and a historical event that was pretty important at the time in the 1980s, and it's very important to our community now. And so what I'd like to do is maybe recognize the people that provided the paving project on the Railroad Street Trail, so on South Railroad Street, from Cedar Street to the nature trail into the high school, middle school compound there. So there was an individual that provided resources and his time and kind of championed that project. And we're not looking to, rename the trail, but we're looking to recognize the individual or possibly individuals that helped put that trail together for us. And I'm not really asking for anything quite just yet, but to move forward with the sign and provide a little bit more information in the coming reports or the coming board meetings, and anyways, just recognize a a really cool thing that happened and something that's very, very useful to our community in 2022. Facilities, let's go there. Thanks again to everyone that helped make this happen. Going on 2 weeks now, have had some really positive impacts. Support staff has been able to work through the town facilities and the heating, ground level core stuff. So building inspections have been performed and they're ongoing. It's a much needed element to our town staff and to our facilities. And we'll be putting together the RFP for the community center roof replacement. It'll be out on Thursday in the Chaffey County Times. So thank you there. I'm probably going over my time. Phil's probably looking at his watch, but I'm going to go ahead and talk a couple more things quick. A little bit of a curveball. Every year, a company named Stantex evaluates all of our bridges. This year, they're requesting us to do some preventive measures. It's nothing too high level. Structurally, the bridge is sound. What we're seeing is some scouring as the creek kind of passes the influent water that goes under the bridge. So probably in layman's term, what we're looking to probably do is a little bit more embankment rock placement to prevent the concrete from getting eroded or undermined. Not a big high level project from an engineering standpoint, but I've asked RG and Associates to run with that and provide a scope and an outline so that we can move forward on that. And we'll probably working on that within the next, we're definitely going to be getting it done before runoff. So probably in the next 15 to 20 days. Sidewalk leveling project. It's supposed to be coming in April. We'll probably know, hopefully, maybe a week or two before they get here. But I think it's one of those things that we're likely to get done in the first couple of weeks in April. And then a few days to remember, town cleanup weekend on April 24th, Blessed BV Day is also happening that day. Arbor Day is May 18th, and the Public Works town cleanup days are scheduled for May 20th and 21st. Waste Management is providing donations. Chaffey Waste is providing donations, and the Garnet team wants to participate as well with some of the stuff that they do. Anyways, thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them at me. Thanks.
Question for Sean. Yes.
Sean, the improvements to well 3, do they involve significant amounts of construction? I guess I'm not worried about, but I'm asking specifically in regards to the archaeologically significant site. There isn't that well 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, great question. The construction is going to be the current infrastructure. So what we're going to be doing is dropping in a larger standpipe in the existing casing. So there will be no drilling. And so we're going to be upsizing from 3-inch to 4-inch pipe from the well casing itself to the well house. That's the brunt of the excavation. So we're going to be replacing the existing pipe with a larger pipe. It's buried in the ground from the well to the building. We'll also be dropping in a larger pump to produce more water. And then the rest of the components will all be telemetry and drives, VFDs, upgrading some of the electronic, syncing components, technology that's inside the building.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Sean? I saw here, Sean, you've got the notice about the Gorell Meadow Canadian Thistle Management and Weed Control. I'm sure you're using the edible, non-water soluble weed killer there.
I'm actually thinking about getting goats.
There you go.
Did give the green light on that.
I like that. Goats. That'll work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring back the logo.
We will not be doing anything. Impact. Yeah, our water supply. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, something like that. You know what I mean? Thank you,
Yes,
Sean.
sir. You bet.
Rec supervisor. You made it through the night.
Yes, yeah, good to see you all in person for the first time in this role. I'll start off my report with the memo at the end, Philip. Earl should be on the line as well.
God, how many pages you got?
9. It was a long one, sorry. So I stopped by the last meeting to update the board on the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant and the Colorado Parks and Wildlife grants that we were not awarded. Just for a refresher, the Land and Water Conservation Fund was for the River Park Improvement Project, and the CPW grant was for the Whipple Bridge and Trail Project. So the we have been moving on these projects despite not getting awarded those grants. So the specifically with the pickleball project, they have been working extremely hard as a pickleball club to raise a lot of funds themselves. They were awarded multiple grants, and really we are pretty close, extremely close to getting the project funded with what has been raised so far. So far, the pickleball club has fundraised $59,000. Or basically, we have all of the costs covered short of about $35,000. There in the second line there, the peak-to-peak funds to be raised. However, their club has committed those funds kind of as a club match for any donations that come in. And they're currently about $4,000 short of the total project cost of $242,000 of their current estimate. So really they're about $4,000 short, provided that there is a slight adjustment to the town of Buena Vista ask. So originally in the budget for the entire project, we had budgeted $55,000 coming out of the Conservation Trust Fund for the total River Park Improvement Project. After we were not awarded the grant, that Peak to Peak proposed 70% of the budgeted funds for that project, being $38,500, be dedicated to the pickleball courts, and the remaining projects or the remaining funds being dedicated to the other shovel-ready projects. So we, at our last Recreation Advisory Board meeting, we kind of informed them of the same progress, and they did give the approval to dedicate 70% of that $55,000 to the pickleball project specifically, so that project can be completed hopefully in 2022. We do currently have an RFP out for the project with a deadline of this coming Thursday. So hopefully we get some proposals back, but we are extremely close to the amount being having all of the funds available. Philip, if you scroll to the next page there. Those are the costs for the project, and kind of along the way throughout the whole project, they've always said we could cut the lighting in the phase 3 cost if they didn't get there funding wise, but with kind of a approval from the board tonight of the $38,500 of the original $55,000 that is already in the budget, should be about a total of $4,000 short of funding the entire project this year.
They're amazing.
Board. He's looking for a motion to approve moving that money.
Correct.
That's basically it. The money's already allocated. It's already budgeted. All he's looking for is and we'll just make it a motion to allow the rec department to move that 38.5 or use that 38.5 for the pickleball courts.
That motion,
Thank you.
you can.
It's also an additional 4,000, right?
That is to be fundraised by the club.
By the club.
Oh.
Yeah, so the 38.5 is what they're looking to move. They're gonna also hold 16.5 for other shovel-ready projects out of that 55. And so we have a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Further discussion? I'm gonna go ahead and do roll call, Paula.
Trustee Fang.
Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee LaCretzi.
Yes.
Trustee Rowe.
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Trustee Bumpy.
I mean, it's a good thing and we're that close. That's what's nice.
Yep, and I mean, we're moving on that project even just this week. Miles Construction is out working on the trailhead as a part of this project. The trailhead does kind of need to move down the trail a little bit because the new courts will kind of encroach on where that land was, but Miles Construction is out there working on that now. And then ACA is also pledged to donate the fill and final grading of the site that's already prepped. So a lot of great momentum on that project.
Great, nice report, Shane. You're all right. Keep going.
Yes, now for the actual report.
Take it easy on them, Shane.
The other project that we asked for movement on last time was the Chafee Common Grounds grant. It's not going to be in the report because we just turned that grant in on Friday. So that was for the Whipple Trail project. The scope of that grant did not allow for the bridge to be funded as a part of that grant, but we don't have the final report back yet, but the bridge replacement is not looking dire, like an immediate need. So that is a positive for that project, but we ended up asking Chafee Common Grounds for $44,700 of a total project of $95,000. And we'll find out if we got that grant awarded in May. In light of the county changes due to their emergency COVID declarations, we had some discussions with the Rec Advisory Board and are updating the capacities in the community center. So those capacities will be set at the lowest level of code. So going forward in the community center here, we will have a capacity of 100, I believe it's 132 here in the Pinion Room and 67 in the Aspen Room. But also as a part of that, we'll be recommending to people who want to use the facility that probably no more than about 100 can fit in here comfortably, and probably about 40 in the Aspen Room comfortably. We have our sponsorship program with local businesses that funds a lot of our scholarships that we award to people with financial needs in the community. Those letters have been sent out to businesses. We've had great feedback already coming in from those, and we still have quite a few opportunities available. We did have to tweak the program slightly this year, just due to capacities. You know, at the back of the t-shirts, there were so many businesses on the back of those shirts, you couldn't tell what logo for each business was. So we did place some limits, but we've had great community involvement in that so far. And then lastly, on the programming side, started up our co-ed volleyball league with 11 teams and youth soccer. Most of our practices have begun or will begin this week, and we'll play our first games on Saturday for 180 players. A lot going on.
Yeah.
But
A lot of players.
yeah, feel free to let me know if you have any questions.
There's a lot of stuff going on. Well, I'll still go back when, Joel, we had one part-time rec person. Part-time, one.
Two, the couple.
It's insane to think about. And that realistically wasn't that long ago. Wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, even when I started, it was just two of us.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight, Shane does have a lot of great information in this report, and it's not just about programming. So one thing he is just for you all to kind of keep an eye on, as our facilities get more and more use and we're opening up the capacities, he does include a summary of that usage and how much revenue is coming in and how much is being waived per our policy. We get a lot of like county government use and things like that. So just kind of keep an eye on that. We'll probably have further discussion when we get into budget season about that kind of thing.
Ben tracks all those numbers as they come in. So we update those through each report.
Any questions for Shane? Thank you very much, Shane. A lot of information there. And it's great. It's all good. Trustee staff interaction. We'll start out with Devin.
I think I'm good.
Gina.
Ooh, I got a few. You ready? No,
You're-
buckle up.
You good? Oh, you got
Yeah.
roller coaster.
Well, not really, but just thinking about with the liquor license stuff, do we actually have a limit on liquor license in town? Just out of curiosity. I know some places do, some don't. Okay.
Do you want to
I was gonna add, the only limit we have is on liquor stores, because by
stores.
state law, they have to be 3,000 feet apart. So just by where the stores are located, we have a limit.
Gotcha. Just based on distance then.
Yep, 3,000 feet.
Gotcha. All right. Another question, and it's actually a little, I guess this falls under rec, but the dog park in town, is there any future focus on that? Like, I mean, I go through there, it's right across the street. I see it all the time, and man, it could use some TLC. I know obviously you have a ton of stuff going on, obviously, which is great, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up as like, we do have dog issues in town and a lot of people do own them, and they might use that facility more if it was just a little better shape. So, I mean, some of those.
Is that way too.
Right. Well, but we're working on that. So hopefully Rodeo Grounds has something going on, but this is in town with a lot of walkable access and the obstacles are splintering away. I mean, it's just, yeah. So just put it on the radar.
real quick, I think Paula might have something from beautification.
The Beautification Advisory Board has targeted the dog park as one
great.
of their projects this year for improvements.
Oh, all right. Sweet.
And that was, a lot of that was local fund, local sponsor. It was a group, if I remember right, that was kind of had taken care of that.
Yeah, it was all of that equipment, I think, was originally purchased as kind of a combo with, I think it was the Barking Valley Dog Club.
Something.
Okay.
You've been around.
Read multiple reports and things like that. So it was, a lot of that was community funded.
Okay.
But
Let me get you
yeah, definitely. We can
Cool.
definitely keep an eye on that.
Sweet. Yeah, just, I mean, I know there's 1,000 other things going on and probably different, higher priority, but I just don't want that one to slip just because it is a, yeah. The last thing, and I don't know how much I can say on it actually, but so next week, the 12th, we have a big thing to consider and talk about. Norm's not here anymore. I will actually be in California for an event I absolutely can't miss. I'm hosting a very large race. And so I will be available on Zoom for it. That leaves 4 trustees and obviously the mayor. And I know it's going to be quite a large conversation. And if it gets to a point where trustees feel maybe it should be considered talked about longer than just one session, please do keep that in mind. I would love to be able to come back and talk about it if possible, or be involved in the conversation. I do understand the next meeting would be on the 29th, and that would be new trustees coming in, but I do think there are some really big things, and I think having a lot of voices in that meeting would be helpful. But
all right, could we maybe ask Jeff to weigh in and on that specific topic, because it is important. Under state law, we have to move on that annexation within a certain number of days. I don't know, maybe Jeff can clarify if you all can continue that hearing, and if you can, when you would have to do it by. The 60-day mark is April 23rd, which is prior to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. So
yeah, it can be continued. I need to actually read the statute carefully to see exactly how many times it can. I can get you an answer probably in a few minutes. Maybe I'll peek at it while you're talking and let you know.
Cool, thank you.
But those, I mean, if it was possible, or if like judicial, I will not be able to vote that night.
And sorry, just to clarify on that, there's going to be multiple. Only one of them is quasi judicial. The other 2 or 3 will be legislative, which means that per policy and law, you will be able to vote as a remote participant on the legislative actions. So there's some nuance there,
right?
That you will be able to vote on some of the decisions.
It's basically the final decision whether or not to annex is legislative. Whether the application and the petition meet certain criteria is quasi judicial. So you can definitely vote on the legislative act remotely.
And the zoning, if it gets annexed, then you could also vote.
If it's approved with this group and then the final vote, then she would be able to vote in.
Correct.
Yep, that's right.
But it is controlled by Colorado statute, the timelines.
Yes.
Did he freeze?
No,
he's studying.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna, I need a few more minutes.
Well, anyhow, I think hopefully, well, depending on all that, I mean, I guess that helps me understand a little bit better, just to be within the process at some point. And the reason my concern is that way is because it is a big thing, and having already 1 trustee not here, and then potentially 2, and I do think 4 can get it done, obviously, but it's not a bad idea to have as much conversation as possible. Take it as you will, but I wanted to share that. That's all I have.
Okay, Paula?
I have nothing.
Nothing? Libby?
From the elegant to the mundane, the sidewalk along US 24, is there any way we can lean on CDOT to clean that up,
Actually,
or whoever it is?
that would be us.
No.
It would be the owners.
It'd be property
owners.
adjacent to it. Town Public Works does a great job cleaning it across from town-owned properties, but
Probably more like LaGree's and Family Dollar, the Chinese place.
Yeah, that is their responsibility.
yeah. So we can look into it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Joel?
Nope.
No. Cindy?
No.
Shane?
Only thing I have is Sean mentioned the date, we are going to do our neighborhood cleanup day for 2022. That'll be Sunday, April 24th, starting at 1 for the 2022 Keeping Buena neighborhood cleanup day. We are going to change the location to be here at the community center this year, but registration is open if anybody would like to sign up to help. The registration deadline is April 11th. If you would like one of the very cool t-shirts. And we currently have 73 people signed up as of right now.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Joseph.
Only to highlight that we are having a public meeting on our housing affordability code audit on Thursday evening this week. So if you all recall, we're working with some consultants to comb through our code and our development review processes with the lens of housing affordability. We've met with quite a few stakeholders, a lot of individual interviews, some focus groups, but Thursday evening will be a public meeting where folks can come learn about the process, but also give their ideas and input. So that's 5:30 here, I think, in the Aspen room.
Thank you. Is Grant still with us?
Hopefully. No.
Nope.
No.
I saw is
Michelle and Sean
okay.
and Mike.
Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to respond to that question about the timing for the annexation hearing. So the way that it works is that you have to have the annexation hearing within 60 days of the resolution of substantial compliance. So I think, Joseph, you said it was April 23rd. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the 60-day mark from the petition acceptance.
Right. And then it's actually should be from the resolution of substantial compliance. So I guess that's what you're referring to, I think, Joseph, when the board actually found it to be in substantial compliance, which is, I think, also called petition acceptance. The issue with that is that you can continue an annexation hearing once you've started it. So it has to happen in 60 days. It can be continued, but you have to leave the hearing open for 1 hour before you continue it. And so, I mean, depending upon what we need to do to accommodate the trustees' schedules, you can basically open the hearing, do other business, and when 1 hour is up, you close the hearing. It's just kind of a dumb rule, and it's a way of getting around that requirement, but there are ways to deal with it legally. So I wanted to take a peek at the statute before I gave you the wrong answer, but there is a way to continue the hearing to do it at a later date once you've had the first one within the 60-day time period.
Interesting. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Vote.
Nothing other than I wouldn't be here for the extended part of the conversation. We'd have brand new people, but I have no problem.
That would be the only consideration at that point is you're going to take an old subject and bring it into new trustees and basically either start it all over or not, or
Whatever.
That's kind of an interesting thought. Interesting.
I can make sure to have a little bit more context in my staff report and we're available for discussion should that come up as a desire.
Perfect. And also, I don't know timeline for applicant. What impact will that have there? I don't know if there is any. Just saying. Just saying. You can do a little more legwork and let us know. Perfect. Anything else, Steve? Nope. Michelle.
I don't have anything.
Already. Don't have anything?
No,
Thank you, Michelle. Sean.
thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to warn Shane that Jay already saw the bus. So for everybody, Jay's our fleet in charge of fleet, so watch out for him. No, all joking aside, let us know if you need to pull maintenance on it. Public Works. That's all I had.
That's all you have. Philip, what do you have?
Before I think we'll get to the park bench, but I just, the magnitude of the CWCB, I had the privilege of being on that board meeting when they did the review and decisions. There were 52 grants that they funded. BV was the second highest out of all of those. So it was pretty impressive. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Does that institute a thank you very much to Greg, and if you see him, pat him on the.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
We will see him tomorrow night.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Okay, so we had commentary come in. Question on the bench. More thoughts, trustees?
There a process
There's always a process. Dave.
through beautification for bench placement, bench approval, bench discussion, bench funding,
Not through beautification, it's a staff process.
staff process?
Yeah, so it comes in through town clerk and then it gets reviewed and sent over to Public Works. And so Norma has filled that out for this proposal. I think the request, if I may speak for you, I think the request is for town to fund it as opposed to the applicant funding it.
Which is
Following the process, it's just,
they will fund and we approve a bench. In this respect, where the ask is for both,
correct.
if that makes sense. Is there a location proposed for this yet at this point, or not necessarily? Or hasn't come
I
up?
don't think so.
Hasn't come up, okay. I know it's not the first time, I mean, Libby, it's not the first time it was brought up. Board, discussion, thoughts?
Just so you know, the process is this form that we included in the packet, so.
I thought I recalled seeing something in beautification's discussion of benches previously.
They do fund.
Nice tribute. It'd be a nice tribute to Ukraine and, and to the fact that they have this friendship bench that connects whether the town pays for it or Norma raises funds privately. I think either way would be acceptable. And I think that somebody had a good suggestion that we actually spend $2,000 on the bench and then also spend $2,000 giving it to the Ukrainians directly, through an organization, but you would probably know how to do that.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, I'm putting together all sorts of information like that. And it's just a matter of whether, which is the best of the money, like money's going to Poland and it's stuck there. They're not able to find banking ways to get things. And so, but that's just the way it is right now. So I'm looking at the process, not a absolute right yet.
Trustees, thoughts on the bench? One step at a time.
I don't disagree, but I think there should be some community process beyond. Yeah. Go ahead, I guess.
Go ahead, Norm.
I'm setting up, I'm calling it right now, but I don't want to be the one that dictates it. Central Colorado Stands with Ukraine as some kind of an organization so that would be able to do the process in conjunction with Buena Vista. So
okay,
it's hard to know right now.
So I think, and from what I'm hearing, and I hear from Dave, I haven't heard, nobody else seems to really, Libby's for it, and that's all cool. I think it's great. Cindy, do you have opinion?
Well, good idea. Reading through here is the $2,000 and the plaque. That's the whole purchase price. They're not looking to get any other sponsorship from anywhere else. The town is going to pay for the whole thing.
At this point, I think we're looking, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a positive comment to proceed. And what we can do is let Norma proceed to us with some type of proposal, if that makes sense.
I think Norma.
I'm looking for, we're in or we're not in. That's what I'm looking for. And then Norma can proceed. And that's just what she just said. She's looking into developing this and pursuing that. And it's like, well, that's great. Let's let her do that. And then we can show that support if that's what the board desires. Show that support for the bench. She also talked a 2 and a 2 match, or you did a 2 and a 2 match. There's different things out there right now in the bucket. I think all I'm looking for is oh yeah, we got some interest. Or, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. That's what I'm looking for, so that Norman knows, has a direction also, if that makes sense.
I'd be in favor for Norma to proceed.
Thank you. Devin, same?
Yeah, same.
And I know Libby, you're same.
Go
Cindy?
for it.
Dave is shoulder shrug because he's gonna be gone and he doesn't care. So it's really, I think, and another thing that you brought up was the sister city thing. Let's go ahead and proceed. And then possibly reach out to staff, myself or staff, and we can think about an agenda item, if not, or something that we can put here and bring back to the trustees and say, here's what we got. Does that make sense, Joseph?
I would just offer up a suggestion, maybe you've already done this, but talk with the Chaffey County Community Foundation.
What?
The Chaffey County Community Foundation.
Okay,
It strikes me as a potentially already set up organization that's facilitating fundraising. And maybe they might have a pathway to, I'm not sure if they would provide funds, but at least facilitate that in a much faster way than setting up your own.
Perfect.
good idea.
Perfect. Go ahead, what do you have?
You know, I'm a planner. I've done this for most of my career, and so it's nothing new to me. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. And I just thought it was a perfect opportunity right now, because I felt guilty for 12 years or so for them putting in this bench, and I didn't get it done here. So, and Sister Cities, I think it's an educational project for us. I don't know if you've ever contemplated Sister Cities, so.
So those are things that we can look at, obviously. But like I say, first things first, Norma, you can proceed with that and we can go from there. I already appreciate it very much. Everybody noticed that you had this.
Yes.
I talked to Paula about some way that we could keep this in front of the trustees. That these are the things that you use when you're looking at these decisions on this paper. How do they apply to this? And I want to commend Joel Benson on this, because actually I believe you brought this forward how many years ago, Joel?
2015.
I mean, it's just perfect. It's how, what is my decision doing? And then does it fit these? And I think we forget about that oftentimes, and we always remember it once a year. And then it goes away again. And so you will be seeing this. And I thank you very much, Paula. And all of these will go back to Paula. The other thing I've requested many times is to have the cemetery in the cleanup day. Please. It seems like we forget in certain parts of town, and it seems to happen. I know it was recently done, and I commend staff on making that happen. I've been talked to a couple times here recently. I would push the board to try to put dedicated funds for the cemetery annually for projects, for cleanup, whatever it is. And I know where you're at on that same thing. And Sean knows it. Just one of those things, it's a forgotten. And one of our comments, if I remember correctly, in one of our other is take care of what we have first before we really start pushing for other things. And so the cemetery has fallen down. I will, to say the least, it's fallen hard. It's coming back, Sean, thank you very much. It's doing well. And I do want to reiterate, I'm going to miss this, and it's for comments from Sean, blind date. I'm going to miss these meetings. That's all I got to say, because it's, I know it's stuff like this. It's like, that's what makes the world go around, guys. That's all there is to it. That was very good, Sean. And Shane, you'll get it, man. I know you will. Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Make sure we, and that was the email from for the trees for the Ukraine.
Oh.
I don't think it's in the packet.
Oh.
That's why we don't have it.
And what was that, Paula?
Okay, we had received a call followed up by an email from Dale Crittering wanting to do ribbons on the trees, yellow and blue, in honor and support of Ukraine. And I know there was some discussion from Sean at Public Works with concerns about some of the trees couldn't have the ribbons on them because of, you know, the new growth coming out and things like that. So it was going to be a decision direction from the board.
Okay. Is that, I will call that, because of that comment, and thank you. Does that put that, I mean, the board can approve it, but it has to be under the jurisdiction of Public Works. Does that make sense?
It does. It should, if it's going on public trees.
There you go. Obviously, we have to approve it, but then just by the comments you said about Sean, about new growth, this and that, and the other thing, it's going to have to be, where can we put it? Sean, would you like to verbalize a little bit there for us?
Yeah, I think it's just something maybe we needed a little bit more information on for locations. And, initially it sounded like we were looking at the street trees on Main Street. And I think that there's just, we did a Arbor Day project a couple of years ago. So we have some smaller trees. They're about 1.5 inch caliper. So I guess I'd like to have a little bit more information. But the mature trees, I think that would probably be fine. And also, it's pretty tight in some areas there. So I just wanted to kind of see maybe a little bit more information on what that looks like. If I could see the ribbon sizes, it's possible. It could be done on all the trees, possibly, maybe proportional to the tree sizes. But that was my only concern, is like some of those trees are still relatively young. And I don't know what that would do to the tree, or how it might impact, the mission statement.
So I would advise the board, if it's something that you're interested in, and I'll come back to that real quick, that it be subject to approval by the Public Works Director. That would be very appropriate. And then we can get more information and determine where it's appropriate in terms of the trees and whatnot. But I think for the board, your previous discussion, there was sensitivity about political statements, things like that. And this could be very visual. So I think that's where your discussion should be.
Yeah, and then if the board so wishes, Sean can come back to say, it's okay here, but not here.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I totally agree with that. And unfortunately, I think it can get extended too with time frame. How long do we leave them there? That kind of thing. Because obviously it's tourist season and maybe we want to show colors, that's fine. But then where do you draw the line too? That's something else you have to be very careful of. The next step would be, okay, so you're doing that. I want to put a green flag on every tree that states for this, and I want to do a yellow flag for that, and a purple one for the, so we have to be very careful.
Makes the bench pretty easy.
Well, it starts to become an easier decision. So board comments.
Was this an email? Is this in the packet?
It wasn't in the packet. It started off with a phone call, and then it was an email that she was told that we would need to bring it to the board for discussion.
I haven't heard about this until now. But yeah, I think it sounds like I'd take Philip's recommendation.
Gina?
I'd prefer more information. Going along with what Sean had said, I think it's important to know, where exactly, how many, what would be the time frame it would be up for, and things like that. Just have more parameters and then kind of consider the situation after there's more information.
I would say ditto. If anybody wants to see a movie about the Ukrainians, though, check out Winter on Fire and Netflix. It's incredible. It's about the 2014 Ukrainian revolution.
No matter how good the cause, it's still a strain on one of the departments that is busy all the time anyway. And so we need more information, but we also need to be careful how we overextend an already overworked department.
Thank you very much. Good comment. Dave?
Well said. Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is an individual or a coalition or a community or, yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I understand that we got a request, but I don't understand. Again, is it just one person? Is this the community's input? And I worry about, like you said, Duff, like whatever news channel you pay attention to, do we put flags up for whatever article is going on? I'm not sure. I just don't understand. I'm having trouble putting the relation to town on this. I empathize with the movement and everything, but I'm a little leery of making political statements as a town without some larger process.
We've kind of had these discussions before. How far does town go to support something?
Right.
And I believe we had that same discussion with the red flag bill. It's like, wait, how far do we go with something? I would like to, Sean, give it a little bit of time. Very little. And I think, how about if we invite that person to come to a meeting, 3-minute public comment, propose something? Does that make sense?
Yes.
That would, let's nail this down. And then also keep in the back of your mind the political. Obviously, okay, you can make the little yellow sign that says support Ukraine magnet you put on your car. I mean, come on, it's the same concept in that respect. People can do that. It doesn't have to be the town per se. Okay, so like I say, a little bit of time, Sean, but not a lot. Don't overwhelm. Okay, just thoughts. And then you think about it. Okay, and then like I say, let's invite gentlemen or whomever to speak, and if they wish to pursue it, then they'll be serious or not.
That's good.
How's that sound?
That's great.
Sound good? Is that it? We have another letter?
God.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is executive session. An executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402 paragraph 4 subparagraph E concerning the general terms of deed restrictions, development agreement, and purchase and sale agreements with Fading West related to the Carbonate Street development. Also an executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and or instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402, paragraph 4, subparagraph E, concerning potential acquisition of water rights. I'd entertain a motion. I have Opie and a second. Lucrezi?
No.
Is that you? That was you? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will resume. We'll resume after we get to the people we're supposed to be. That means. I know, Joel, do we want to do water one of the reapers? You have to go as hard as it.